Make up some shit.
Hello, boys. Welcome to the kiln.
What happened to the women?
There are women?
There are women?
Oh, yeah, they're out. They do exist, don't they? Well,
We lost a viewer. We mentioned women and we lost a viewer.
Oh, no, that's not a good sign.
Hello. This is a place. And it's gonna get hotter.
Hey, boys, get in the kiln.
So, heat. Welcome to the kiln.
And what are we doing today?
Oh, we're talking about men that do stuff and men that stop those men from doing stuff.
Yes, so protagonists and
very basic definition
antagonists.
of protagonists.
And we're doing 3x3 again. What an intro, what an intro.
We're doing great, guys.
I think I
Alex.
It fit the criteria, yeah.
You did?
Sure, why not? Let's just get into it. Starting with Caleb's protagonists. There they are.
It's my boys and woman. There's two women there. Well, a debate. I can't.
Oh no, a lot of them have long hair. They look like women.
Yeah, true. And one of them can't tell the difference.
Couldn't. Or maybe he still can't, he just doesn't
guesses.
mention it. What if Goku still can't tell what genders are and he just doesn't bother anymore?
Well, I mean, he's getting it awfully correct now. he's making awfully educated guesses.
Yeah, if they don't fight back, he's right.
So with this 3x3, I'll probably start.
Where we
I'll probably go from Goku, and I'll go left, up, right, up, left.
So we're doing a backwards S.
Or how I used to draw my S's.
Okay.
When I was a kid, I used to draw my S's like that, and I thought that was good. And then, oh no. Okay, Goku.
Goku.
He's a good man.
Goku.
He is a very funny character.
Yeah, but why did you choose him for the protagonist?
He's so with Goku. I wouldn't say he's one of the first protagonists that I quite enjoyed. Definitely one of the first anime protagonists. Up until that point, anime protagonists were always those characters that, yeah, they're kind of cool, but other characters were more interesting. Other characters I enjoyed seeing more, and I felt they had a bit more of that stuff to them. But Goku was a pleasant surprise because he was, even to this day, he seems very unique in the sense that he's very wholesome. He's very fish out of water, which I fucking find hilarious, especially in the early stages. And then even when it comes to Z, there's still plenty of moments where fish out of water makes it very interesting, but it also not only serves as a comedic effect, which it makes it very funny, but also the fact that a lot of the time protagonists don't always nail flat characters, or writers don't always nail flat protagonists. But I think Goku's a very good one. He's one of those characters that doesn't really undergo anything. But he isn't meant to undergo anything. He never is meant to undergo any change. And I think having him that sort of center of sort of. I just think, and especially with Goku's character, his personality, and the adventures he goes upon, I don't know, I just think he's a very nice character. And I think many of us here would agree.
I mean,
Always
yeah,
the best.
definitely. Well, when it comes to Goku, I feel like he's a lot of people's either favorite protagonist or just one of their favorite protagonists. Just because of who Goku is, he's very easy to love.
Yeah.
He has a lot of strengths. I can understand like why people love him so much, and he also one key thing that makes him so strong as a protagonist is the essence that if you know he gets angry, you know something's
that's
wrong.
true. That's true.
And I think that is very powerful. So, and because of that, the first time we really see Goku become like berserker type levels mad is when he actually becomes a Super Saiyan,
Yeah.
which I still think is the best transformation and one of the greatest scenes in all of Dragon Ball. For the sheer raw emotion that he expels, like, and after everything you've gone through, especially through Dragon Ball, you've seen him get mad over Krillin's death prior, but like this was this point, it wasn't the same like before. This was so much worse, and
This time he was there.
yeah, he was there to see it as well.
That's true. Yeah.
So it just kind of broke him as well. And I think as time goes on, Goku is just... he's free and he doesn't need to kind of show off. He just works at it. He has nothing to really prove to anyone. He just wants to be himself. He wants to fight because that's what he enjoys. It might just be his Saiyan blood coursing through his veins that push him to fight, but he's just... I don't know. He is one of the greatest protagonists of all time, I do think. Just because of the essence he explodes. And I feel like I've never met someone who hasn't liked Goku.
Yeah.
If you know,
We've
because
heard people that have talked bad about Goku,
Yeah.
saying he's a bad father, but no one hates Goku.
no one hates him, no.
Yeah.
And as much as he is not the greatest father, he's at least he still tries, and he's still kind of there in their lives a bit.
I mean,
Compared to
for a
other fathers.
Saiyan, he's
Wow.
a fantastic father.
For a Saiyan, yeah, he's for a Saiyan, he is, yeah.
I love that by Saiyan standards, he's too caring and attached to his children, but for human standards, he's too detached. and
Yeah.
too I
Which,
find
is
that
very- which
amusing.
is
Which it is one of those things with Goku where it's like his personality feels a lot more like from the nurture side of things, but the way he does things and his instincts are very natural to him.
Yeah.
Nature
yeah.
kind of
Yeah.
compels him. Like the thing with like I think Vegeta said once, like, we are compelled to be with strong women, and that's why like he chose Chi-Chi. Which I enjoy that. So it's
Well,
like
I mean, partially he chose because he thought it was food.
yeah. well, and that's why I kind of find it even more interesting they chose Bulma, because Bulma definitely does have a much more stronger will and presence. So Vegeta with Bulma, and even just seeing Bulma boss him around was hilarious, with the bad man shirt.
Bulma does have a strong presence.
Yeah.
What a.
One of the things I also like with Goku is that he doesn't win every fight he's in, but for some reason when he's on screen, when he's there, you just get the sense that everything will be alright, even though we're not there. It's a fictional story.
And even
but
though
I
sometimes
get
everything
it's
won't be
there, it's
alright.
just-
Yeah.
But with him there, it will. Even if it won't be. It's just...
Like,
it's
there are bits we will talk about later when we come to antagonists, I'm sure of it. But to sum up, like, why Goku is great, I find it hard to kind of explain.
Yeah.
I'm getting a little bit, like...
It's something you need to have watched Dragon Ball, I think, to understand sort of why he's just one of those characters. That is
Yeah, you
quite
can't
lovable.
just describe the genius.
That is this guy.
Well, a genius is an absolute wrong word, but the appeal of Dragon Ball and Goku and all those characters.
Yeah.
And it's not like he even has, like, a strong philosophy or anything. He just
Nah.
wants to be himself. Although, like, some choices he makes is kind of a bit weird. But that's...
Man just wants to...
He just wants to fight. That's all he wants.
Just wants to get stronger, man.
Now,
And
should we move on to the next choice? Because I'm sure we'll talk about Goku more in depth later when it comes to other things.
like he's up. Yeah.
Yeah.
So next we have an absolute fucking unit. His name's Guy Gardner. Now, admittedly, I have not consumed as much Guy Gardner material as I should, and I definitely intend to.
That's
but
why I was
from
a
the
bit more
material I have
curious.
consumed, from what I have consumed, he's a fucking Chad. He is a fucking legend. You know, I can't really elaborate on the character thing. The main reason he's there is because he's just a unit. He's just a funny man, and every time he's on screen, I just thoroughly enjoy his presence, and I thoroughly enjoy how his personality, what he brings to whichever story he happens to be in.
It is a nice fresh take, or fresh perspective for Green Lantern stories.
Yeah.
Because Hal Jordan is much more of a
And even Carl
standing
Rayner.
hero. And then there's Guy Gardner, who's
Even like if you read some of like the older comics and see like how his relationship kind of works with Batman, you see it doesn't. They just can't get along with each other. And even though like he is someone who's presented as someone who's a bit more of an asshole, someone who's a bit more rude and crass, I find it interesting that he's always like a necessary part to usually when it comes to comics. He's in the core comics, like when it's a group instead of just focusing on one Lantern. He's typically a part of that core. So you got Kilowog with him as well, and you got other ones. And I find it interesting because as much as he is like just that asshole, he's still there and he still has people around him that he works with and trusts. And he is one of those characters who I think is very interesting and doesn't get enough screen time and stuff.
No.
But and the unique style as well.
And also like and one thing I like about all the different Lanterns is how they sort of all use their powers differently.
Yeah.
How John Stewart, is it?
Yeah, Big Man.
John Stewart, yeah. How he uses because I always want to call him Patrick Stewart. That's never that inclination is never going to change. I've been wanting to call him Patrick Stewart. But how his powers manifest as architecture, how Hal's is more focused in a way, but then you just got Guy Gardner who's just. I think they describe it as whenever he uses his power, all of it comes out. He doesn't.
Yeah. He doesn't hold anything back. Yeah.
He doesn't hold back, which I think, you know, it's such a the Green Lantern rings. I mean, is going to be beyond just Guy Gardner, but
honestly, the way they use their powers is just personal reflections on themselves.
Exactly. Yeah, it's such an expressive power. Yeah. You know, being able to create whatever the fuck you want.
even still, like with like John Stewart, like his powers are heavily tied in with his past of being an architect, as well as going into like the Marines or whatever he was like in the military as well. So like when he creates a gun, he does all the details. It is an actual gun.
He's one so sick. The way he manifests his power is.
Whereas someone who is like, I think, like Hal Jordan is someone who's a bit more simplistic with his style, but he can produce a lot more typically.
Yeah.
Or you have someone that's creative as Carl Rayner, who's creative because as an artist, his creative mind is off the charts. That's why he's just so good at just creating randomness.
And I think they even describe that he can easily change his constructs.
Yeah.
Very quickly, because there was this panel. I can't remember who was talking, but it was someone describing because all the lands were using their power, and they were describing how each one used their power in a different way, and it's something that I find I just think is very interesting. Like they all use it in a similar way to create stuff, but how they create the stuff, and I just think that's very interesting. Well, then that's for the power systems video mainly, but because I put that in that one.
Power systems. That'll be interesting.
Very funny man.
Definitely not the Green Lantern I would have chosen.
Yeah, of course, but and I find it funny how when before I even read anything of Green Lantern, you told me all the Lantern names, I initially said, oh yeah, I'm gonna like this one, and what happened? Instant favorite of mine when I saw him. But yeah, that's Guy Gardner. I think we should move on to Luke Skywalker.
No, that's Mark Hamill.
I'm interested to hear what you're gonna say with Luke Skywalker. Because
He,
Yeah.
I'm a big Star Wars fan as you, but this feels like since he set up that genre, he feels rather generic in that sense. I want to know why you put him here.
okay.
Yeah.
First reason is because more of a personal one. Because out of all these characters, Luke is the oldest character for me. He, I don't even know when I first watched Star Wars. Look, I don't know. It was at
That
such
early in your life.
at such a young age that I remember I had struggle saying most words when I knew who Luke Skywalker was. So there is a personal thing that I quite that's one of the reasons he's on there. However, the other reason I do think looking back on it and part of this is watching the sequels and then looking back at the original trilogy and thinking, yeah, this is much better. And then I'll begin to notice actually the good things and things I didn't notice about Luke the first time around. And that being that, yes, obviously his story has sort of been redone so often. But I think Star Wars was such a good catalyst for what has now become such a popular hero's journey, that being Luke starting off as this whiny cunt and then turning into this person who, in Empire Strikes Back, becoming better with the Force, respecting the Force more, trying to step up to be that hero, but even then, through his impatience, through him not wanting to learn, he loses. That's something that not many characters do, even today. Not many characters just lose like that, especially in movies like that. So, then after that, when it comes to Return of the Jedi, and he's grown, he's matured, and he's gotten to this point where he is a Jedi, but there's still that conflict, I think it actually creates a very interesting and a very complex character, especially for that time. On face value, it can seem very simple, but I think when you look at it a bit deeper, you can definitely see a bit of the complexity they put within him, and then dickheads fucked it up, but
I'm glad you're able to see the complexity of what I consider like the simple baseline of like a main character, and you're able to still look past that, because I didn't give any thought at all to Luke Skywalker.
I didn't either.
I was actually gonna say something completely different.
Until the sequels, and then I looked back and I'm thinking, actually no, he's got a decent character, because in the end of the day, I mean, not just the basic hero's journey, but the temptation at the end, him turning to the dark side. Well, him using he like for a second he does turn, he does slip into that, but then he's able to push that aside, and that's why I think the prequels themselves offer a little bit to that, because then you've got Anakin, who wasn't able to do that, who wasn't able to come back, and then his son is able to tap into that and then say, no, I'm not going to fall down that path, I'm not going to do that, and even to the end I'm going to believe that my father can come back as well.
Is that bouncy?
Yeah.
Yeah,
she was getting in the way. She doesn't like Luke Skywalker. I was actually going to suggest something completely different about Luke Skywalker. I think what's interesting to me about him, obviously I'm nowhere near as big a Star Wars fan as you guys, which is very clear.
Is it?
Yeah, is the propaganda behind Star Wars, because he's not known as this hero who destroyed the Empire amongst a lot of the circles. He's known as what was it, like Red 5 or whatever it is, the person who destroyed the Death Star.
Oh, true.
He's not known as the person who, and I think I appreciate that part of him a bit more, that he didn't take like all this credit for a Jedi being the one to kind of destroy the Empire. Instead, he's known as this ordinary kid from the absolute middle of nowhere to rise up and become someone so influential to a lot of other characters. especially moving forward in the franchise. Even though, but still,
Yeah.
I think what he was represented as in the propaganda of that group, I forget what the group's called, the Resistance or whatever.
The rebels.
Yeah, the rebels.
Did I say the Resistance?
I
Yeah,
said the
you're a
Resistance.
fucking scum.
I just find it. I just appreciate him a little bit more
Yeah.
just because
Yeah.
of that.
That's true. That's very true.
Mm.
I
Other
don't
than
think-
that,
I don't
I
think it's
kind
really-
of I kind of agree more with Alex with like the whole. He does feel very bland, and obviously with me, I prefer characters who are a lot more flawed in
That's fair enough.
interest. So that's why I like Anakin
Oh, but they
more.
made Luke Skywalker flawed in those movies, didn't you see?
But he was flawed anyway. But the point was he was flawed at the beginning, and then he became better. So I don't understand why these fucking Stunato, where Ryan Johnson has to do this shit, when the entire point was him becoming better, and then him becoming the symbol of hope. Yes, we're gonna get rid of this symbol of hope, and we're gonna make him some Stunato on the fucking cliffs.
When I watched those movies, I was so goddamn confused because like, is this Luke Skywalker? Because it looks like they just cast Mark Hamill.
Why would they give up?
They
Why
did
would,
cast Mark Hamill,
Yeah,
didn't
but
they?
that's not the point. It's the persona because it just felt like he's just Mark Hamill. An
I love
old man.
how, actually, for all
Old
three
man
of
Hamill.
these, we've completely diverged from protagonists. We started talking about the greatness of Dragon Ball, and then we started talking about the power system of the rings, and now we're talking about the sequels.
Well, yeah, who gives a shit? This is a podcast. We can talk about whatever we want.
because they're dumb. They're
But
dumb.
I did. No, I, as much as I do hate the movies, and as a not Star Wars fan, that's saying something. I hate those movies
Yeah.
so much. And just my favorite moment, and the one moment I will always laugh at, is when like Rey hands him the lightsaber, and he just throws it away.
That was kind of
That
funny.
was funny. That was funny. Because it was the cliffhanger ending, and then the next movie opens with that. I'm like, that got me.
Yeah.
Are we going up one now?
Yep. So now we go on to Matoi. I suppose, yeah, Goku was the first anime character that I quite enjoyed. However, Matoi was the one that I think was the first one who actually made me, make a list in terms of protagonists I actually really enjoy. Because in the beginning, it's like, yeah, cool
Yeah,
character.
it's much more of like a mystery behind what's happening, and yeah.
But then, towards the end, and I don't want to say too much because the twist in that was so good. I don't want to spoil anyone on it. But towards the end,
Deaths in Dragon Ball.
yeah, but
Yeah,
but
but
that's
no one dies
Dragon
in
Ball.
Dragon Ball.
True.
Towards the end, when she discovers something and she finds out something, and it fucks with her head, it messes with her mind to the extent where she teeters towards the other side. To me, that I found that extremely interesting because a lot of the time we do have obviously art stories where characters go from good to bad and characters lose hope and all that, but not a lot of the time do we actually have a story where the character something big happens and instead of losing hope or anything they just almost turn evil, which and you know there might be other stories like that, but that was the first story where something like that happened, and it was the first story that I watched that I saw complexity in the main character like that, so that's why Mato is on there, not for what happened initially. She was a great character initially, but when that happened, I'm like, fuck, I like this character now. That's
I think
all I really
it's
say about Mato.
I think it's more interesting with more the choice of Matui, just as a female, as to be a protagonist. Because usually, like in anime, the only time I feel like people would really connect with a female protagonist is in the romance genre. and this isn't that.
Yeah, true.
There aren't a lot of great, like, solo protagonists. They are the main character. Like, sure, there's often like a good mix of like two protagonists together, but obviously one's a male, and it doesn't skew in that romance theme all the time.
Yeah.
But Montoya definitely is. Like, I'm just sitting here thinking, like, can I really think of any other woman who is that same kind of essence if it's not a romance kind of series? And I really can't.
The closest I can think is Misaka, but then she's part of a spin-off.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah. I think you're right there in that there's not a lot of solo female protagonists that...
Especially in anime. That aren't of the romance genre. That I think that's the kind of...
Yeah.
Because like...
So I wouldn't say Violet Evergarden, but that does...
Oh, yeah.
Romance things, but... Damn.
Like, I can't really think about it. I think Matui is that kind of perfect one, almost. But even then, like, Matui is just a good character in a series that kind of just... It's something light and fluffy at the beginning.
Not that series.
And then it goes into a very dark place at points.
Yeah.
And it handles it really well. I think Matui's character growth throughout the whole series, from like the mysteries at the beginning to discovery, is actually really good. And even just like the whole message behind Kill the Kill, adding on that like it's more about who you are than anything else.
Yeah.
I think that's what makes her an even stronger protagonist.
And what you wear and what you have is not who you are. It's not you. And there's also the theme of letting go of that stuff and not worrying about that stuff because it's not necessarily what's important. What's important is you.
Yeah.
And and especially like, I no, because then that's gonna get into spoiler territory, and I don't want to get into that. But I think she's a good vessel, for that series, a good protagonist.
Yeah.
Now moving on from her, Master Chief. Now, admittedly, with Master Chief, there's not much I can say in the terms of.
Yeah, I didn't know what you were gonna say at all.
Because a lot of his character then comes into. Well, look, okay, I'll preface by saying I haven't read any of the novels or the comics or shit like that. I don't give.
Oh yeah, I did hear those were good.
They are good, but I just haven't.
Yeah.
So my judgment is off Halo 1 to 5. Now, he gets more character in 4 to 5, but I don't like those games. So fuck him. I don't like 4 and 5.
Can you explain why he is a good protagonist, in your opinion?
I don't know what makes him a good protagonist. I just like him. He's just a mad cunt. He's just a mad cunt.
Soldier.
I mean, look, I will admit that I do think that they had some good direction in 4 and 5 as to his character. That being said, I think in games like that often. I mean, I think the story wasn't even the worst part of those games.
It's just looking at your list. I just feel like it's the really odd choice almost.
He's the one that I like. It's more of a personal I like thing because he's a mad cunt.
Because obviously you have multiple game characters on this list, but with the other one, I feel like I can actually talk about like why he's good a bit more than Master Chief.
I can't talk about Chief in the sense that I can't talk about why he's a good protagonist. Why he's a good protagonist.
There you have it. That's it. That's the Master Chief bit.
I can just talk. All I can say is, I love Halo. This guy's a mad cunt. Admittedly, I could have talked more about Arbiter, but I prefer Master Chief because he's cooler. But the Arbiter has
cooler weapons.
But Master Chief.
Wait. We have a very important question to ask. Alex, what's your opinion?
My opinion on fucking Master Chief?
Yeah.
Mad cunt, but I haven't played the Halo games in years. I've got so little to say.
Alright. Edward Kenway next.
Now I can. Now these ones I can talk about. These ones are a bit easier for me to talk about.
Yeah.
Edward Kenway. Okay. So so Black Flag I think its story with him, I think, is very well done because a lot of the time, a tragedy for a character will happen in the beginning or the middle. Him, it happens towards the end, and it's only towards the end where he undergoes that slap in the face change that makes him undergo the right path and what he's supposed to do. You know, you have characters like Mary Read, who eggs him on and says, "You can do more than just being a pirate. You can be more." And then when he begins to lose friends, and when he begins to look around and see that people people that he was once friends with, and he once cared about, that now they're all gone, he starts to change, and that becomes a slap in the face that makes him go from, I mean, he's still a pirate,
Yeah.
but it makes him see that there's perhaps more to him to do. There is more he can be, and there's more he can achieve. He's not just a pirate that goes around sinking ships and plundering and killing. He's become more than that. He can actually save the world. He can actually ensure that the people of the world aren't going to have their freedoms taken away. He can do more. And I think that it's very interesting because it's very unique. Because again, that happens towards the end. He goes through all this being the pirate, and then at the end he's like, fuck. Maybe there is that more. Maybe there is that stuff I can do instead. And I found that very compelling, me personally. And I think he's one of the better protagonists of Assassin's Creed, and especially that game in general is fucking fantastic. But I'll talk about that when we get up the game 3x3s. But yeah,
just when it comes to Assassin's Creed, I think a lot of the early ones, because those are the games I remember the most. A lot of the early and going into the characters. What is it, Connor?
Yeah.
Like Connor's like family history. It's kind of just that interesting feeling where it's like just the idea to go back and live through what people in your own family live through. And I think one of the strongest points of Assassin's Creed is definitely story.
Yeah.
That's what compels you to play it, and it's like, and the way it does pirates as well is just so perfect, to which a game I don't feel like has ever really accomplished. And even just having a spotlight on pirates this much, it's something very interesting, fascinating. Like, I'm partial more to, I think, the whole father and son relationship of Assassin's Creed 3.
Yeah.
I just think that is something really impressive. But still...
Nandos is following.
But still, yes,
Yeah, Nandos is here.
Mad Dog.
But still, like, for an Assassin's Creed game, I do like Edward probably the most out of all of them. But still, I can't help but like acknowledge that I think I appreciate the father and son relationship of Assassin's Creed 3 and the different natures they have. And I think the whole, because they're father and son, they're so close, and how different they are, but how similar they are at the same time, just, I think, compelled me a little bit more into them. Yeah.
I mean, after Edward, I'd probably put Connor and... Well, either I'd put Connor or I'd put Shane. Because I think Shane's also got a very interesting story, especially because he's a Templar. He was an assassin, then he becomes a Templar.
Yes.
And I think especially that was very good. But I do think that... I think Connor and I think that game in general is very underrated. I think Connor's a great assassin as well. But I obviously... I just prefer Edward's story, and I prefer the game overall. But yeah, I'd definitely Edward's story. I think I prefer over the other assassins, and even Ezio. I mean, I love Ezio. He was my first assassin, but the story of Connor of Edward just blew me away when I played that game. And when I finished that game, I was so mad because started and stopped, started that and stopped that game so many times, and I hadn't gone through all the way and completed it. And when I did, I'm like, holy shit, why didn't I complete this earlier? Because after that, I was like, fuck, this is a good story. But yeah, that's most of what I've got to say about Edward. What's Alex's opinion?
My opinion on what? Okay, here's my opinion. The Assassin's Creed movie was shit, and I know fucking nothing else. What do you want from me?
That's fair enough.
That's fair.
That's fair. Well, that was some brilliant input right there. That was brilliant input.
Yeah, definitely brilliant input.
It's the best I can do. You asked for it.
Now,
There's another protagonist that I just don't know.
Have you seen my mummy?
so
Helen?
the doctor.
Exterminate.
So, well, yes, we have the fantastic David Tennant's face up on the screen. For me, when I wrote it down, I just put the Doctor in general because not that I like every single incarnation equally, and not that some of the incarnations I just don't give a shit about. But the point is, I think that one thing I value a lot in the Doctor is the fact that he has such a brilliant mechanic that is regeneration. I don't think any TV show ever has implemented such a good power for the series. Because through regeneration, you can not only effectively change and revamp the series, but also the character themselves. I mean, of course, we've had, like, Doctors regenerate, and then the series itself has sort of been the same. Be it, 9 and 10, it stayed very similar. The only difference was the Doctor was different. 11, 12, the only difference was the Doctor was different. But it still offers a way for you to change things up. It offers you a way to continue the series even after the actor doesn't want to do it anymore. And it's why I often praise the second Doctor, Patrick Troughton, so much, because he had to make this work. If he didn't make this work, Doctor Who would not have survived this long. It would have been dead, because it proved, hey, when this actor doesn't want to do it anymore, we can get a new actor in and make the character.
It was also the fact that William Hartnell was old.
Yeah. But like, if he didn't pull it off, then that would have been it.
When it comes to like Doctor Who as well, I think in this new generation we're living in, I feel like there's more room to grow and also connect with previous versions.
Yeah.
So like I know like some of them say like how they kind of were inspired by another Doctor's performance, and that's what they connected to more than anything else.
And everyone has their favorite Doctor, which is I think is brilliant. It's one of those characters where even if you don't like one face, it's like, well, just wait a few seasons and there'll be a new one. Yeah. You know what I mean? Or there's a different one. And I think that makes the character very easy to relate to, because there's just so many different...
yes, I relate to dying and being reborn as David Tennant.
Yes. Don't we all?
But on to specifically why he is a good protagonist, even aside from the whole regeneration thing and all that. I would be more focusing on... I think more so it comes from New Who, because I think New Who does a lot of development for the Doctor. Not that Classic didn't do it. Classic mainly did it, I felt, with the first Doctor. Because the first Doctor, he was initially... He didn't like humans. He was distrustful of them. He was a bit selfish at times. He often did things at their expense just because he wanted to do something. Just because he wanted to do it. And once he spent more time with humans, he began to become less selfish, and he eventually grew into, second, third, fourth, and so on. And then when New Who came around and they destroyed fucking Gallifrey, that offered even more avenue to play with the Doctor's character, to see a growth, to see change. And this being who has lived for thousands and thousands of years, there's a lot of room for you to do things without you. There's a lot of room for you to implement both positive changes and negative changes, of which the Doctor has undergone way too many. But it's just, I think it's, especially Russell T Davies era with Ninth Doctor getting over the Time War, and then 10 still getting over it, but he's not as traumatized by it as 9 is, but there's still that sort of journey he has to undertake. Yeah. There's not much else I can say about the Doctor.
Yeah, it's really hard to get into
other than
the Doctor.
Yeah.
Just with the amount of info there is to know about the Doctor, it's so hard.
I think out of this, it is the thing with the most amount of shit.
Yeah.
It or Dragon Ball, but I think Doctor Who might have more episodes than Dragon Ball. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure it does.
Doctor Who to have more episodes.
I think it has over 800 in the classics alone, I think, but I could be wrong on that. I could be wrong. And they have audio books, and novels, comics, and bro, they have so much. But
862 Doctor Who episodes in total.
In total, yeah. Okay. And then that's not even including that the New Who ones go for longer than anime.
Many Dragon Ball.
Should be near 300, I think.
No, that's just 100. No, all Dragon Balls. All Dragon Ball, not just the original series.
Yeah, 300
Maybe
to
500.
400, I'd say. Maybe 500.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
To do addition, Dragon Balls.
That's a lot. That's
Dragon Ball
Doctor's got
Super,
so many
Dragon Ball
episodes.
Heroes. There are also a bunch of movies
Yeah,
as well.
Doctor Who's way longer.
Yeah.
I mean, it's been going since the 60s. So
Yeah.
But One Piece still beats it.
it was literally released the day after JFK died, I think.
Mm.
I think, yeah.
So it's his fault.
Yeah.
The Who.
I think they were going to release on the day he died, but they didn't
Yes.
want to because that's when I think that's when they didn't want it because like, oh, this guy's died, we're not going to do that. But the next day they did it.
Yeah, that's very fair. That's very fair.
Anyway, moving on from the Doctor onto my spirit animal. All right. So I can tell you that with Umaru, if you put a bit of Umaru memorabilia on your desk, your aim will increase by 50%. I can confirm that.
You can.
Yep.
Alex.
If you put it on there, your gameplay gets better. All right.
Alex,
so
going straight to Amazon.
Alex,
Yeah,
Alex, you might want to get a bit of Umaru memorabilia, put it on your desk, and your aim will get better
Umaru.
because that is the spirit animal power at
Okay,
work.
I can get the dress she wears, the school uniform. There's an android, there's
You
a
gotta go
cap,
to school uniform.
there's
There's
a wig,
plushie.
it's a really big wig.
You can probably get a
A
plush.
wig. Jeez.
There's just a black t-shirt with just her on there. Very original.
Anyway, why she's a good protagonist?
She's just a little shit.
She is. She like. I don't really know what to say with Umaru,
She's just a
other than
little shit.
okay, look, okay, okay. A lot of why I like Umaru comes from how she acts and how she is somewhat like me. That's where that comes from. I can't really go into detail. Like I can't really go into like her story and her arcs and all that because she doesn't really. She does have development
Yeah.
to some extent, but it's not like this over complex stuff that someone like Kenway has or Matoi has.
No, she's a very complex character. What do you mean?
Yeah, she's got one hand for potato chips, one hand for cola.
Well, yeah, well, she taught me that you need to balance the taste of the snacks. All right, she taught me that, and I've learned some ways, right? I've learned some tricks, you know.
Tell us how this protagonist has taught you about the world.
Well, you need to balance your snacks, all right? Now, I don't have baths, but when she does that thing with the bath and she has the chips everywhere, I'm like, I gotta do that one day. That sounds fucking mad. It'd be fucking weird and it'd be fucking slobby as fuck, but it'd be funny. Yeah, if I had to describe.
I don't think we can talk that much about Maru.
No. However, what I will say is I like Umaru so much as a character that my favorite character of all time fluctuates between two people, and it will for the foreseeable future, it will always fluctuate between these two people, Umaru and the next person on this list. So that's just all I want to say about why I like her so much, is that just a character that resonates with me a lot. And I can't really describe much more because I don't think there is much more to describe. It's so much of a
character concept. And
it's so much of a subjective thing with Umaru. With Umaru, and even Ben to some extent, but I do have a lot to say about Ben, but with Umaru, it's such a subjective thing for me. You know, if people out there didn't like Umaru, I'm like, okay, sure. I couldn't convince them otherwise, because again, it's such a me thing. It's such a subjective thing for me that it's like, well, I can't really explain much. But yeah. Now on
Ben.
to the other man. And as I said, the man that fluctuates between them are always either he's first or she's first. Either she's second or he's second. It fluctuates. And sometimes it's a tie. So, yeah. Ben is the third oldest character for me on here. Ever since, I was a little fucking shit. Ben has always been a character that has resonated with me, and a character that I've always enjoyed watching. And back then, like Umaru, it was a very subjective thing. But as I got older and as I watched Alien Force and even Ultimate and Omniverse, I began to enjoy the character even more. And it's one thing that, bit sidetracked off topic of Ben specifically, but it's one thing I'll say. One reason I like the series so much is that even as an adult, I can still thoroughly enjoy it. The reason I think Ben is such a good main character is mostly the subjective part of it, that to some extent he's like me, but to another extent it's also because of how he transitions from Ben 10 to Alien Force. Because in the original series, it was so interesting watching him get the Omnitrix, be a dickhead about it, and then slowly learn not only how to use it more responsibly, but how to become a better person in general.
Mm-hmm.
And he goes from this little fucking shit who's using grey matter to try and get Sumo Slammer cards, and someone who is always bickering with his cousin, to someone who evidently really cares about his cousin, and someone who becomes much more of a hero, much more of a responsible person. And this hits sort of its not peak, but it sort of hits he sort of hits that point in Alien Force, Because when you get to Alien Force, you then have this kid who used to be a little shit, who is now undergoing a different journey. Now he is definitely more responsible, but at this point, he actually no longer is undertaking the journey of going from immaturity to maturity. He is going from the journey of being the one who follows Grandpa Max, and now the one who has to lead like Grandpa Max.
I think it's also a strong point that he grew up with the audience.
Yeah.
Like, a lot of these would just, like, either stay the same age, or you have someone a bit more like Goku who just time skips.
Yeah.
But he's the one I feel like a lot more people can connect with a bit more. Like, he's not the smartest, he's not the greatest, but he just gets this thing, a power source that almost everyone would kind of just want, because it's just so cool. And just, who hasn't just hit their arm against their own hand? Yeah.
One thing I was, because I was thinking about this on my on one of my daily walk the dogs, and I was thinking how the Ben 10 from Ben 10 to Alien Force is very similar to Naruto Shippuden. It's this immature fuckwit who has this power that he doesn't necessarily understand, and who is going from being a dickhead to less of a dickhead and maturing a bit. And then eventually, once you get to the next series or the next stage, after the skip, it's no longer necessarily about the person becoming more mature. It's more about that person becoming their own, becoming a leader, independence even. Because a lot of Alien Force, especially in that first season, was Ben no longer having Max around to guide him, no longer having Max around to show him what to do. He can't look up to Max. And he can't really look up to Kevin or Gwen because they don't know what the fuck they're doing either. The best he can do is use all their strength and work together with them to try and get through and try and be the plumbers, because even then there's not many other plumber agents around. He has to rely on everyone else, and he has to become that leader, and he has to further be worthy of the Omnitrix. And it's why the ending of Alien Force, I think, is actually a very good story, because it's him destroying the Omnitrix, and I think that's actually quite a cool moment where he does it, even though he sort of planned on taking the Ultimatrix from Albedo anyway. I just think that story was a very good one for him, and it's why I still like Ultimate Alien and Omniverse very much so. But I don't like what they did to Ben's character. Because I felt like once you get to Ultimate Alien and once you go into Omniverse, he starts to become more of a dickhead again. Especially Omniverse. Like, sometimes he'll do things in Omniverse that it's like he makes a mistake that he made when he was a kid. And he learned from when he was a kid, and now he's making the same mistakes again. Omniverse, I think, Ultimate Alien and Omniverse, I think, dropped the ball a bit. But him in the original series and him in Alien Force, I think was done very well, very well.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And that's it for me. That's all of my characters that I like.
Ben 10 was like my favorite show growing up, and here I am just listening to the conversation because somehow I have nothing to say.
Yeah.
What do you think of Ben?
I love him. I love all Ben 10. I loved watching Ben. You said Ethan, that Ben was a character that grew up. I hated that. I hated when I was like 7 and I watched him like, I want to be 10 years old, and then I got 10, and then Alien Force happened, and I'm like, I want to be 15 or 16, whatever it was. But I don't have too much. I haven't watched it in forever, except the episodes of Omniverse. I do understand what you mean with Omniverse because that series felt more like it was trying to go back to what it was at the start, but that kind of fucked up
Yeah.
the growth that Ben went through from Ben 10 to Alien Force.
Yeah.
But I still like Omniverse
Yeah, it's still a good series.
very much, but
It
I
still
don't like
adds a
what
whole
they
lot
did
to
with
it.
Yeah.
Alright. Next 3x3. Alex, you ready?
Ooh, speaking.
Yeah, you finally get to talk because you haven't been talking.
He hasn't been talking. No, he gets to talk all he wants now.
Yeah, there's some Caleb could be quiet.
Well, except for
Caleb,
like one,
how many of you do you recognize, Caleb?
2, 3, 4.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Yeah.
And the one that
Let's go the same. Let's go the same order as Caleb. Why not?
Okay.
Saitama, the press cunt. Now,
Snoop
Saitama.
Dogg.
What do I like about Saitama? I want to like ask myself questions of why why I like them as a protagonist. What they're.
Why did you choose them? Why did you do this? Why?
Why did I choose Saitama? Because
Serious
he's
punch.
the only character in that series which isn't serious. Other characters in that series have every ability, have all the traits you would expect in an MC, like Garo or
Except my favorite.
Moon Rider or Genos. Watch Dog Man. But here we have Saitama. This isn't a story about him becoming the strongest hero. This story starts with him as the strongest hero, and then it's about him and his just sad, boring life of trying to live as a hero for fun, and he's just not having fun anymore. So a lot of the story is about him living just his life and trying to help him the best he can, but he's also an absolute fucking idiot. He didn't even know there was a hero organization.
Even though it was partially inspired because of Saitama.
He's the reason it exists.
Back when it wasn't even he wasn't even as strong as he was now. It was just he was an ordinary guy when
I'm just a
he
man.
saved that kid.
Why do I like Saitama so much? Like now that I'm like on the spotlight trying to talk about it, I'm struggling to like not have the words to say.
Do you understand what I went through?
Yeah, for an entire hour. Caleb, you went through that. Now I get my hour.
I'm helping out
You're
along.
screaming, so is Snoop Dogg. Okay.
You're still on Saitama, Alex.
No, just reading this. Okay, Saitama. Words.
I don't know. I just feel like with Saitama itself, it's already it's something more on the lines of Goku, where it is hard to kind of judge them if you haven't seen the series as well. Like I wouldn't put Saitama anywhere near my top favorite protagonists because at times he doesn't even feel like he is the protagonist. Like there are so many times when it's just like that's why like people started saying like Garo is the protagonist because we're more following him than Saitama.
Well, on some chapters, yeah.
Yeah, so at times it's, and because it is meant to be like a seinen, it's meant to be something like a commentary on the whole shonen genre. It doesn't always take itself the most seriously, especially when it comes to
Whenever he's
Saitama
on screen,
itself.
it never takes himself seriously.
No, like literally, I put an image of him wearing a wig because I love that thing. It's just funny and stupid,
It's the best thing.
it's just enjoyable. I don't think you can really say too much about Saitama because we really haven't gone a lot more in depth feelings of who Saitama is. As you said, like we're just following a guy who's just bored
Yeah, he's
about being
that-
strong.
the story is a parody of other series, other shonen, but it's a seinen. It's a commentary on that.
Yeah,
It's as you said, and it's interesting to see that in a series like Dragon Ball, there's always a stronger opponent, but in this one, there is no stronger opponent. There's only just Saitama, and the story is not about him getting stronger. It's about him maybe coming to terms with this new life that he's living. He's not. He has to find other joys in life, but for some reason, he's constantly refusing to do anything but become a hero because he put all this effort, which wasn't much effort, but he put all this effort into becoming a hero for fun. And he's just not willing to do anything else anymore because that was his dream as a child. He's living his dream, but he's just not happy.
Mm.
And then all this other spark comes into her life. Genos comes into his life, and Genos is an absolute fucking nuisance. But over time, Saitama actually Genos begins to grow on Saitama.
Same with Fubuki and King.
And Fubuki and King, yeah, King. I love the dichotomy between King and Saitama because
That's funny.
Saitama is I've words to say now. I thought him up.
He thought them up.
Saitama is a character who every single other entity in that world is below him. He does not know how strong someone is because they're way below where he is at. So whether he fights a Sea King or Moomin Rider, they're one punch, right? King is the opposite. King is at the very bottom. Every other living being on that planet is above him. So far above him, he cannot tell how strong they are. And because both of them have their own perspective of not being able to see how strong the other side is, and feeling alone in that regard, they managed to find an unlikely bond, and it creates a lot of very interesting moments in the series.
It really does, especially when we like first get to see them together, and they just like fawned over like games and stuff.
Yeah,
and weep shit.
So, I love what King brings to Saitama's character. King as a character by himself is great, but what he brings to the story and what he brings to Saitama is absolutely amazing. I thought of words. Thank you, Ethan, for letting me think.
Spider-Man.
Spider-Man is such a fucking endearing... Peter Parker is such an endearing character.
No, I preferred when it was Octavius.
You can prefer Octavius. I like Peter Parker. Peter Parker is a character who sacrifices so much in the ideal of having the responsibility to do what is right, to save people where he can. Octavius is interesting because he became a better Spider-Man by letting the cops deal with the small things. Peter Parker could never turn a blind eye. He always had to do it, and it always fucked up his life.
Yeah.
That's the sacrifice he makes, and that's what makes him such a character. And the fact that every time Spider-Man wins, all the time, Peter Parker doesn't. There's always something he loses. And a lot of the films do this right. But the ones that really nail it is Sam Raimi. Sam Raimi's Spider-Man was able to properly capture Peter Parker as a down-on-his-luck kid who's broke and just can't do shit. Especially when it comes to Spider-Man, when he's in Spider-Man 2, when he no longer is Spider-Man, he actually has a life when he ignores his responsibilities, but he just can't do that. He can't just turn a blind eye to the evils of the world. Unfortunately, he suffers for it, and that's amazing as a character. And I love every adaptation of Spider-Man is interesting in its own way, but I want to say the best adaptation outside of the comic books of Peter Parker is from the PS4 game that came out a few years ago. Was one of the best. It was played by Ben's voice actor.
Which one?
Yuri Lowenthal, yeah.
Okay.
Yuri Lowenthal is played Peter Parker, and even though I've seen Ben's, I've seen Naruto
and Keiko.
I've seen. Really?
Yeah, he's the English dub of Keiko.
He's the English dub of Keiko.
Yeah. I remember watching it. I'm like, hello.
That's amazing. Anyway, so even though I've heard him as Sasuke from Naruto and Ben 10, I've seen hundreds of episodes. I'm still, when I watch him as Peter Parker, I don't immediately think that this is Sasuke because he somehow fits the role perfectly. And I think
that voice actor himself just fits the role of a teenager.
Yeah, he's very.
Despite the fact he's like 40.
Yeah. He just has that
perfectly
voice.
Capture who Peter Parker is, and the game's able to do that.
Even just
wonderfully well.
Spider-Man was really just that turning point in terms of comics, because obviously Spider-Man is referred to as like the mascot of Marvel.
Mm-hmm.
But due to the fact that I feel like a lot more kids and even just teenagers who read comics, because that's primarily the main audience of comics, that Spider-Man is a teenager. He has struggles. He has problems.
He's a kid who's trying, man.
Yeah.
He's trying, and he fails a lot of the time in life, and it's because
even when you
of
see
this
him
burden
quit,
that he has to live with.
Even when you see him quit, it's things and all the other things and all the different aspects that come into his life. Spider-Man just is that one character that I just think it's hard.
He's just a kid.
Yeah.
He's just a kid from Queens, and he's fucking trying.
It's even harder with him, like, because now he's getting more of a legacy with Miles Morales, but it's barely a legacy of that because there's just something like you can't remove Peter Parker from the role as much as you can't remove Batman from Batman. You can't remove Clark Kent from Superman because without them it wouldn't work. Of course, you can try to do it, and things have successfully done it before, but they have to be their own thing. That's why, like, when Nightwing became Batman, he did a different thing. He chose a different path. And the same goes for any other Robin who takes up the role. Is because they were raised in this environment. But Spider-Man really had no one. He had to learn everything on his own. And I think it's more endearing, and it's one of the things where it's like, Spider-Man is that one comic book character you cannot escape, especially if you're going into Marvel Comics. You gotta check out a lot of the Spider-Man comics and content, because there are a lot of the great things, even just with the Ultimate continuity.
Ultimate Spider-Man did fantastic.
Ultimate Spider-Man's great. I love that series.
A modern perspective of the Peter Parker.
There's so much, even just him and his villains. Like, there's no other Marvel character with a good rogues gallery except Spider-Man.
Yeah.
And I think it just really works.
See, all these other characters on this list are mostly some of my favorite characters, my favorite protagonists. Peter Parker is not one of my favorite characters.
Yeah, he's not mine either, but he deserves to be here, and I can completely understand.
He's one of the best protagonists I've seen, and despite the fact of a large anime theme here, I could not put Peter Parker there. I can't even talk nearly as much about this when I get to Doctor Strange, but we'll get there.
Next one.
Ray Kiriyama, depressed sack of shit. Hang on. I got 3 depressed sacks of shit on this list.
We know Alex's type. Depressed anime main character.
Shit. Anyway, this is a depressed sack of shit. His name is Ray Kiriyama. He's a character who lost his family at a young age and grew up in it. And the only way he felt he could grow up with a home and shelter is to delve into this game, into shogi, and have his adoptive father teach him, because if his adoptive father didn't see him as a prodigy, he would not be able to live there. So a lot of his life is cursed by this shogi, and he wanted to get out of that family as soon as possible. So as soon as he was old enough, he quit school, he got out of there, and started living on his own. And he does absolutely nothing. He's depressed. He does his job, and then he sits at home, eats 2-minute noodles, and lies on the floor. Depressed sack of shit.
That sounds like the future.
Yeah. And he meets this family on accident, and then they somehow take him in, and they're just such a warm and loving group of people that he can't help but be around them. And I love this story because it's about him opening up to these people, learning to be not happier, but to open up himself more. He's not just this kid or this burden on this family that he's used to stay alive. He now is his own person, and he's trying to open up himself. Look, I've said open up too much, but finally freely express himself and grow with more of these people, grow closer to the people around him. And I love that this journey is of him as just a kid who thinks himself as nothing, finally accepting the people around him and learning to be his own person. He's an 18-year-old and he's got most of his life together, but he doesn't feel whole, and that's what this series is really about. Even though it's also got a heavy shogi theme, and I don't know how to fucking play that game. To me. It's to me about this character learning to be someone, and not just the no one he considers himself to be. Unlike the other 2 depressed sacks of shit, that's actually what his character arc is. And these other depressed shits have other character arcs. I
really don't have anything to say about Ray, honestly. He never left an impression on me.
He did. I'm not diagnosed with depression. But whenever we watched that show, I was like, man, I really relate to this character. And then at some point he's like, man, I'm bad at depression. And I'm like, what? You're depressed? That's not good. I should see a doctor. Next, Subaru from ReZero. The other depressed sack of shit.
Yeah. Another one.
Have you seen Edge of Tomorrow, Caleb?
Who?
Edge of Tomorrow.
Who?
It's a Tom Cruise movie where a guy dies in the battlefield and then just wakes up that morning
No.
and he has to do it again. Okay, so similar to Groundhog Day,
I still haven't seen that either.
you know what
But you know
Groundhog
what
Day
the
is.
theme is. Groundhog
Sort
Day.
of.
Yeah.
This character is just a human, right? And he gets isekai into a world. He just walks out of a grocery store, and then all of a sudden, he's just got his groceries in a fantasy world.
Yep.
Weird as shit. It doesn't bother, and I don't care. I'm fine with this series. It willingly, openly says, "I don't care. Let's go." Right?
Yeah.
And so he's now in this new world, and he's just he in his in the human world, he was just this kid who got bullied and wasn't able to connect with anyone. So instead, he just sat in his pajamas all day and just played video games and sit in his room. Even with his parents' support, he was never able to go outside again. But then when he got into this new world, this isekai world, he's now a new person. He's reinvigorated. He doesn't have everything that was in his old life there. So now he's a lot more charismatic. Even though it's just a front, he actually opens up more, even on a surface level. And then that immediately gets betrayed when he's fucking murdered. And then he wakes back up right back where he started. So these connections that he made previously with these people no longer are there. So he tries to talk to them because he doesn't know he died and got reborn. And they're like, "Who the fuck are you? How do you know my name? Get the fuck away from me! What are you a stalker?"
Yeah.
And then eventually he uses that ability to be able to get on their good side because he saves them from the death that's coming to them. And that's not important.
And then continuously progresses further and further.
But that, so now so that's not important. The important part is now that he's got these people he cares about, that he's opened himself up to, and that he has the power to save, even though he's just a lazy human. He now has the power of knowledge. He now knows what needs to be done, and now it's about him doing what needs to be done. It's about him, who's just a person trying to be useful, trying to save the people he now has a commitment with, and it's fucking exhausting having to make the same relationships with people over and over again until they're safe. Because it's not like one day over and over again. They're like checkpoints every few days. So if he doesn't die for a week, his checkpoint has changed like 2 days ago. So there is progression in the story. And you'd think with a story like that, there'd be no consequences. But the sheer emotion and the connections and the progress he makes, having to lose all of that, and it's just not something he can just do again. So once you see him pour his heart out into getting someone to understand where he's coming from, he can't just turn on the waterworks again the next time. It really does mean everything, this connection he's just brought with this person.
And then he dies. And he has to do it all over again.
No, and the things, and he does rather well. And he makes... why do I like him as main character? Because he is a person. Right? He's just a dude.
Like, this is a character who I know is amongst your favourite anime characters altogether.
He's one of my favourite characters ever. He was like top 30 in season 1, but when he got his backstory in season 2, that was top 7, I think.
Yeah.
Love this kid.
So I was very curious to hear what you have to say.
It's about the effort he puts in, because he isn't the strongest. He's the weakest person in the room, by far. He's just a human. There are elves and fairies and magics and demons and shit, but he's there, and he needs to do his best, and that's all he can do. And this series does show you that your best can very often be enough to get over these trials that needs to be overcome, that only he has the power to do. And I love that it's able to show that this kid who's nothing is able to become something with this one power that he's been given. And it's really... what's the word? I want to say endearing, but I said that too much with Peter Parker. Let's say endearing again. Let's look up the thesaurus up. And after seeing his struggles...
Captivating, charming.
Captivating, charming, no. Captivating.
Alex is captivated.
I am. And he does go through, like, if he does not just come back and is like, alright, take 2. What he sees in his previous times fucking traumatize him. Like the picture shown.
PTSD, and then he has to live through it again.
Not weeks, days. And he has to go through it again unless he actually gets off his fucking ass and does something.
Yeah.
Gets killed an awful lot.
Yeah. This is my input. Yeah.
Yeah.
Nah, for me, like, Subaru never really did anything or connect with me as much. Honestly, no one in that whole series connects with me that much.
No one else did to me except Subaru. There are characters I like. I like Otto. He's funny.
Yeah. It's just ReZero, just...
I like how my favorite character is I connect with them on a deep level. They're such endearing characters that I look up to. And then my second favorite character is like, they're funny.
You're funny.
They're funny.
Doctor Strange?
Doctor Strange is not funny.
Who?
No, Strange.
No,
Very
it's strange.
The wine.
Okay, yeah.
Alex hot
I wish I read more Doctor Strange. I read some of his most iconic stories, but not. Anyway, well, I do love this character who was top shit, and then he got bumped down to the bottom level, and he had to work himself back up and get over his ego to be able to become something more. He trusted his life in his hands, and once they were gone, he had to learn to be who left.
Whoops.
Welcome back.
I clicked a button on a Discord server, but I thought it was a text channel, but it wasn't a text channel. It was a voice.
Good job.
I do that way too often. Anyway, continue.
His character, who was at the top and was bumped down several pegs, having to get over his ego to become something more, and then becomes something way more. He becomes a Sorcerer Supreme with the skills that he has. I find that I just really enjoy that kind of character. Unfortunately, I can't talk nearly as much as I can about Peter Parker. But
No, I haven't honestly read
complete
that much.
shift in character with Doctor Strange of pompous asshole to still pompous, but you know.
And I haven't really read that much of Doctor Strange comics, so I can't really say all too much about it. Like, I've seen him in comics, and he does seem a little bit charismatic at times, and especially the way he's presented.
It's great chemistry with Tony Stark, both movies and comics. With the little fucking beard gang.
Yeah.
He doesn't have a beard much in this image. Well, it's not even really a beard, it's like a goatee. Yeah. Anyway. I like him a lot, but he's not someone I can talk.
This is like Alex picking Master Chief for his list almost.
And they're both in the middle, which is...
Yeah, I like Doctor Strange. He's cool. And so and despite the fact that he is like the Sorcerer Supreme, he's not just... He doesn't just have all the answers. He's not God in this world. He is still just a human trying to fight these cosmic entities.
Don't worry.
He's doing a rather fucking good job too.
I'll break this middle character just liking them. I'll break that. I'll break it. You wait and see.
Alright. Thorfinn, we can talk about Thorfinn.
Yeah, we can talk about Thorfinn. Thorfinn's great.
Thorfinn, Vinland Saga,
Such
the first 40 chapters, is a prologue to his story, a story where he's out for revenge. And through his own code of honor, he has to go along with this murderer and beat him in a duel. And for this first part of the series, he's absolutely nothing. He's just a mindless beast that has nothing but revenge in his mind. And that's not the Thorfinn we're going to talk about, because once that revenge just is not possible.
And it's such a drastic change from the father that we meet as well. Because his father wouldn't like be out for blood, out for revenge. His father was kind of just that Chadley guy who's...
He was the Chad. He was the one who was most powerful in the room but refused to fight.
Yeah.
He had no enemies, and he tried to push this... He tried to make sure his son...
I think what propels...
battle, and then that...
I think what also
caused so much loss. Sorry.
I was going to say, like, I think what propels Thorfinn even further as well is not just because it's only Thorfinn that we're watching kind of go through all this trial stuff, is that Canute is always there with him, kind of. Like, we also see Canute's development And like even like it was said at some stage, I forget when, like I think it was before like Farmland and all that crap, that like Canute is more akin to being like Thor's, this person who Thorfinn should be more like, because it was Thor's is his father, and it just there's a lot of Thors.
What Thors?
No, I'm just saying there's a lot of names with Thor in it.
Thorfinn, Thorkel, Thors.
Yeah.
Thor.
It's just weird saying over and over again. But yeah, like I don't know, it's more endearing. No, I said it. Like even when we just first see him, obviously it's different from anime to manga, but like
we got
in
a
the
lot of
manga,
words to talk about breakfast.
well, in manga, he appears more just like he's in this random camp, and I do like the whole historical nature, so like no one can understand him because he's speaking a different language because he's in a different part of the world, and then they do need a translator, and then they see him fight, and it's like he just rushes in, and then you got Askeladd, although Askeladd is the enemy as well. Askeladd is still there, and he's kind of just, I wouldn't say a rival, he's just like that presence that will always be in Thorfinn's head, kind of, to push him forward, even after Askeladd's gone. It just continues. Yeah.
I'll be back. Do continue that.
Yep. I want to talk about with the Farmland arc, where he goes from someone who no longer has a drive, because I'm going to say the first season, then Farmland.
Yeah.
Prologue and Farmland. In the prologue, he had one goal, and that was to kill this one man. And now that man is gone, and now he's got nothing. So in Farmland, he finally starts to remember the words of his father, and that end when he was able to share the same sentiments as his father, talking about Vinland. That growth was that's probably the best moment in the entire series for me. Just across the sea, place with Vinland. That just chef's kiss. And that's why he's on the list, because of what happened at the end of Farmland.
Even when you were next to me, you were talking about, like, I've heard Farmland's good. And I'm just sitting there kind of just like, you wait and see. You wait and see.
I waited and I saw. Let's move on to Iori. This one is here because he's funny.
He's funny. I mean, no. The reason why he actually is one of my... He became my second favourite character in the entire series is not because of his funny moments. It's more for his more personal moments and developments in the series.
Yeah, because I'm going to use the word again. What was we doing? He's very endearing.
That's the word of the day, endearing.
But because he's been roped into this absolute idiocy, but he still managed to retain some form of moral code, that even while he's drunk and naked, he still is able to bring people together, that he's able to be a friend, really. He's able to understand and empathize with the people around him while naked. And then he does put in the effort needed to make sure that they are comfortable around him and in their own situation. When chapter 25, when he, after talking shit for 24 whole chapters about Kitahara's weebdom, the moment someone talks shit about it, absolutely not. He could have got laid that night.
Yeah.
And he didn't. He's a fucking he's a big man.
One of my favourite moments with him is probably more to do with Best Girl. And when Best Girl literally offers him, do you want to have sex? And the way it's treated is honestly very good, because it is one of those moments that he sympathises with her, and on his own mind he has someone that he kind of wants to be with as well. Although he's offered this chance, I think it's more interesting that he doesn't run away. He doesn't try and hide away with the joke. He more connects with her on a deep connection, and that's why she became one of my favourite characters, because it was from that point you really see her be kind of like that role model-esque character, the one that he can always confide in and talk to and connect with, because they have a bond. It might not be a sexual bond, although it was offered, but it's one of my favourite dynamics, and just even Iori's dynamics with each of the characters is very good, and it even continues to know, like, what... Obviously, you don't like Bushijima, but Bushijima is one of my favourite characters. Especially what happens with later in the story, which you're not up to. But, still. If you...
I've returned. What anime is this?
This is Grand Blue Dreaming, which Alex and I will show you the live action up to one day. When we're not in COVID.
Basically, Caleb, this character is here because he's funny.
Okay.
But yeah, I also use the magic word of the day.
Endearing.
He's endearing.
But honestly, he is a great main character. And I feel like because he is much more of like an unknown kind of character, and like the manga is literally for parts of it, it's like, this person just likes to draw ocean creatures. He likes to draw scene. He does some beautiful artworks, but still.
He's able to empathize and cater to and help make people around him feel comfortable and wanted while naked and drunk.
Yeah.
Excuse me?
Yeah. There's a lot of drinking in this series.
Fantastic.
Yeah, but they take off their clothes when they drink.
Right.
Including the women.
Right.
He did come back at a kind of a perfect moment, because one of the ones he can actually talk about next.
Lelouch!
Lelouch of
To some
Britannia.
extent, because I've not seen that show.
I don't think we any of us have seen that show in so long.
No, it's been a long time.
Alex.
What are you talking about? That man's an antagonist. Why is he on the protagonist?
You're gonna get smick. I've put him here because it's his character, I feel, that carried through most of Code Geass.
Oh, I definitely did. I agree.
And his cunning and his leadership and his planning and his charisma throughout the entire series is what sold the series. Right? It's the sacrifices he made and the trials he went through that really make him. That is one of the reasons I put him here as just one of the best protagonists I've ever seen. He's not particularly one of my favorites, like Peter Parker, but I couldn't not have him there.
Yeah, I know what you mean. He's also.
I don't know what more to say on the topic.
I was going to say more on the lines that he's a lot more of a smarter protagonist than a lot that we do get. Like, he's often compared to, obviously, Light a lot in terms of the intellect level and how he kind of manages to control the situation, control the story, the narrative of what's happening, even in a high pressure situation that happens in Code Geass, which is much more war effort and rebellion and all that stuff. And the way he kind of masquerades as Zero without anyone really knowing who he is and still accomplishes this goal is actually kind of impressive. And then by the end to to become something different, but to also be the trigger for the difference. I'm kind of avoiding the spoiler and how Code Geass ends.
Look how we respect Code Geass so much, we just never talk about the spoilers.
We can't. We just can't. It's just one of those things you can't talk about.
I mean, it's been over a decade.
Yeah, but still.
One thing I think we should clarify, in case other people are confused, is that when we say a protagonist and an antagonist is different from a hero and a villain.
Yeah.
A hero and a villain is more of a moral thing.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, a protagonist is the person
that we follow,
in which the story is focused on, and the person that is trying to achieve the person that we're focusing on that is trying to achieve something or trying to do stuff. The antagonist is the person who goes against the person we follow.
Yeah.
So Lelouch is an antagonist because he does not go against the person we're following.
Which in a lot more clearer terms, like Light, although he's seen as the villain of the show, he's the protagonist and Al is the antagonist.
Yeah. Yes.
Because they're all.
We're following Light's pursuit in doing his job, what he wants to do, which is kill all the criminals. Yet Al is the person who is trying to stop Light from doing it. Doesn't mean you can't think that Al's good.
Yeah, it doesn't mean antagonists are doing something that's wrong.
Yeah. Just a clarification. That's how we define protagonists and antagonists.
Yeah. We have one more, Alex.
Spike Spiegel.
Spike Spiegel. What?
He's a character
He is, yeah.
who... Yep, shut your fucking head.
He's a character.
Who is a hypocrite in a way. He tells others that the past doesn't define you to keep going ahead, but he can't let go of his one eye. Ever since the day he quote unquote died, he has always been seeing the present in one eye and the past in the other, and he just can't escape it. So when the past finally catches back up to him, after the entire series of him just saying whatever happens will happen, he can't escape what he thought he left behind all those years ago.
And even when it hurts the people around him that he's going to care about, he still hurts them. Like, even just seeing, like, Faye's emotion, like, towards more the ending and crap. And, like, she knows she can't do anything in this situation because Spike just can't let go.
And he knows that it's unreasonable.
Yeah.
But he simply cannot escape this curse he seems to have placed on himself. And this responsibility that he feels he must take care of when it comes to Vicious.
Which I feel like is a trap that a lot of people can, in many different ways, come into contact with in their own lives as well. Not just in this outlandish space opera.
And that is basically all I wanted to say when it came to Space Beagle.
Yeah, that's fair.
I didn't have too much.
Well, we're moving on to mine, are we? Well.
How many do I know from yours?
How many do you know?
Well,
if we're going the S way, okay, we're going the S way.
A little bit, an episode or so of no. So I listen to know more than Alex.
What?
What? No.
No.
Same amount, I think. Same amount.
I've
seen an episode of...
I've read a third of Berserk, I've watched half of Gintama, I've watched 4/5 of Food Wars, I've read Part 7, I've watched 1 episode of that, 7 episodes of that, all of that, and read that.
I've seen an episode of Food Wars, or maybe 2, because you showed me, but other than that, the only thing I've seen somewhat extensively is Luffy.
Well, Luffy's lost, and for good reason.
Yeah.
We're starting with Mash, the person eating the cream puff, going num num. Mash?
That's what I gave you.
Okay. Mash is in a world where magic, literally everyone has magic, and for some reason, Mash doesn't have magic. He was orphaned, all alone, and yet, he just worked out, became buff, and now he just defies logic.
So he's Asta?
No, I would compare him more to a middle ground between Asta and Saitama.
Right.
He's more in that level, because he doesn't have any, like, magic ability at all. He can't nullify magic. He's just strong. Right. And comedically strong sometimes. And, like, yesterday, like, when I was talking to Alex in my stream, and it's one of those series that the jokes always hit. The jokes always land. The pacing is amazing. And Mash himself is just so lovable, because... like, when he was getting sorted into his house, right? There are 3 houses of this Harry Potter-like world. Yeah, when he was getting sorted in, the whatever, the unicorn thing and whatever, the sorting hat version, yeah? And they looked into his mind, and the only thing that was on his mind was cream puffs. And then we just go through this entire spiel about trying to put him in a house, yet all he thinks about is cream puffs. So they can't get any read on him at all. And by the end, it's just like, people who like pastries going to Alder. It's just comedic and brilliant. And Mash is such a good protagonist, because he's just someone who doesn't care. Like, even if, like, someone just pushes a bunch of information at him, his response, like, literally in the last chapter was, I just died from info dump. Because he's one of those characters who doesn't care. He doesn't really have a lot to prove. He just kind of cares about the people that he makes friends with. And I think he's just so good. Like, Alex, can you help me out with this? Because I'm losing words for Mash. He's just amazing. He's just amazing. There is no series like Mashal that every chapter I laugh at. There's always a laugh to be found in Mashal.
He's the best wand in media.
Yeah, he does have the best wand in media. Which is funny.
Did you care to send me an image? Or...
No. It's part of the hilarity in crap.
Oh, okay. So,
But
if I wanted to know, I'd have to actually.
Yeah, obviously
It's not for the what it looks like, more so the use it, what it does.
Oh, okay.
And how he.
So I can't just send you the image of it.
Yeah, like this man, like instead of like going on a broom, right? This is how he goes on a broom and flies. His muscles are so strong that he just flies. He pushes the air down and he flies. And he's playing Quidditch. Like they invited to play Quidditch and he just fucking throws the ball and he defies logic so much that the ball goes through the goals and curves back to him. And continuously just keeps going on with it. There's so much magic.
I love that there was a gate on the floor that was sealed with magic, and it's like, we don't have strong enough magic to do this. So then he just puts his fingers underneath the gate and just pries it open.
What? Oh, one of my favourite moments in all of Mashal. And this is why he is an amazing protagonist. Alright, he's fighting this, like, one of the other things to get, like, the coins for, like, the exam or whatever. And basically there's a woman who's just kind of like, oh, I'm pretty, so I'm a trap. And after defeating, like, the big bad in the woods, and that's how he meets Dot Bright, or whatever his name is, one of the other protagonists, the woman kind of just like, what the hell? And then he just gets her, picks her up, and German suplexes her, and says, I believe in equality.
He believes in cream puffs and equality.
Cream puffs and equality. The fact that he did that is just amazing to me, because it's something you'd never really see, and I just love it. There's so much love to MASH. MASH is still a very young series as well, compared to a lot of these. Like, majority of these things have over 100 chapters. MASH, it's like in the 70s or something, just now. Alright, so we should move on to Dr. Tenma. Dr. Tenma. Kenzo Tenma. I talked about it last time a bit with Monster in the series, that he is a doctor who kind of saves a person who becomes like a serial killer, and it's kind of just like he made the choice and he can't go back on this choice, but he continues to progress in the story, like as a person who still believes that what he did was right, even though he feels responsible for all this murder that happens and the cause of this great, almost third world war that kind of partially comes through, like with the whole things and emotions and feelings between characters, so diverse. Even just him connecting with characters that they might not be there for that long. Like he connects with characters, and we're seeing the other characters' perspective and what they think about Tenma from the beginning, where we got to know Tenma. We spent enough time with Tenma to know what he's thinking, what's he going through, and then to progress the story into other characters, what they think about what's happening, and like how they perceive what Tenma has done, is kind of the core greatness of Monster. To see the impact this man has on other people's lives, as well as the way that he is a fugitive, and because he is Japanese, he is very distinct in this German country that he is in. Especially, like, this is still a country that's partially recovering from World War II still. And I think all, like, the tense moments and all the great character moments come through with Tenma, and he just is a great protagonist. I don't know what else to say. I said a lot last time about why Monster's great, and it's kind of rooted in Tenma as the protagonist that we follow on his journey. And it's not like it's a hero's journey at all. It's just the person who made a choice. He can't go back on this choice, but he still believes what he did was right. And I think, even though other people's lives are still being lost, I think, realistically, it's very human and very Alex, magic word?
Endearing.
There we go. To watch this
Yeah.
person go through everything that he does go through, even just all the horrors that occur during Monster. Yeah, that's my bit. Alex, do you want to talk a little bit?
Talk about more. What could I say that you haven't already said?
I know, right? So we're moving on to my next one.
The next one I got 7 episodes under my belt and I dropped that shit. What's so good about this one?
Alright, Kenichi Shirahama. He is here simply because he's a nobody.
Yeah, I know that.
Yeah, that's the main reason why I love him. Is because he literally is no one. He's a nobody. You don't get that from a protagonist usually. Usually they're always someone. But Kenichi is the character who just works at it, and he works hard to kind of achieve what his 6 masters are pushing him towards. Not 6, 7. 7 masters are pushing him to teach. And this is the greatest disciple of 7 different principles of martial arts. And he is just a nobody. Realistically, he's just a person who works hard, puts the effort in, and does things and cares about. Literally, other characters in the series are more special and more unique, but he's not. And I think that's partially why I love him a lot. It's just because he is that nobody that... and to see him grow, and it is about progression, and continuously, and watching him go through everything he does, and train every day, and push himself. Even when he's not really seeing what he's doing as training, he's constantly being tested, trained, and what kind of helps this story is the insane level that the masters are at, who are literal all chads. They are all chads. You can't help it. One man literally just kicked a bridge, he just tapped the bridge and it broke. One man held himself down by grating his feet into a sewer thing, the circle sewer thing, or whatever. He held himself down even though he shouldn't be doing that. He's teaching him what not to do while doing it and still winning against this giant thug. All his masters are chads, and he's just a wimpy kid who has nothing, who is no one, and that is why I love Kenichi Shirahama.
Because he takes that step.
Yeah, he takes that step.
So many people can't. He goes and looks for this where he can get better at fighting because he's always been picked on. And everything that he gets taught, because I've only seen very little, but even everything that he got taught, he puts into practice and is able to grow stronger because of it. He doesn't know what he doesn't get the fruits of his labor until long after, and once he notices, he starts to I can see he actually appreciates all the fucking hell he has to go through for this.
Yeah. And to him, even just when he considers about quitting, and hearing just his father's words, because this is a kid still who has parents who had an ordinary life, and just he's thrown into this mix of insanity, and it's wonderful. I love Kenichi, Smartest Disciple. It's one of my favorite things. But it is just that thing where it's you don't see that often in series where you just have a protagonist who is literal no one, especially for a shonen series as well.
That's true.
Speaking of people who had to work hard for everything they achieved, Soma. One up. Soma Yukihira. One of my favourite quotes. Although he did have a good start with his father being just the insane Chad lad that he is. One quote that I think really resonated with why Soma is a good character and a good protagonist is that the way his father spoke about him was, he's not special, he's not gifted at all. He literally just put in the effort. That's it. He has, at the beginning of the series, almost, 300, 400 losses in a food war against his dad, because his dad won't pull punches against his kid. He's still, but he continues, even after all this loss. His dad didn't expect him to continue this far and be this passionate about food and cooking, and yet he is. And one of my favourite bits as well about Soma is that he is cocky a bit. He's a bit cocky, he's a bit of a bastard. And the fact that I still love him so much, he is actually my second favourite protagonist on this list. Just because of who he is. he's someone who's cocky, he's someone who works hard, and anytime I see him keep trying, keep testing, it actually makes me want to work harder. And I think that's what I get out of a lot of these. Like with Kenichi, they make me want to work harder. They aren't particular special, they aren't things, they just work hard, put in the effort, and I think that's all you can really do in life. And they're just really encouraging. That's why I love these kind of characters. But with Soma, I still find it fascinating how you could watch someone who's just a cocky asshole, but still you find him fascinating and you don't really respond to the cockiness that he kind of adds to the story. Alex, your take?
On Kenichi?
No, not Kenichi, Soma.
I'm
talking about Soma.
Right, yeah. I know, it was the same. It felt the same. But Soma, oh fuck. What is it? No, what's my take on Soma?
Hello. Protagonist.
Thank you, DGSSSSSSX. Follow, Soma. I do love his character being someone who... You got a common theme here with
People
Kenichi
who
as
work
well.
hard.
Mistook him because he is someone who put in the effort. A lot of the other characters are just talented prodigies.
Yeah.
And he's like his father owns some restaurant, and then he just absolutely rocks their world with this raw skill he learns. But just because he has all the skill doesn't mean it's another one of those like Broccoli and Gara is his name in the way that talent versus raw skill, but he's constantly growing throughout the series, learning all these different techniques. And he doesn't always win.
No, he doesn't always win, and that's partially the reason why he is kind of great and kind of continues on.
It's like in Dragon Ball.
Yeah.
Goku, he always won every battle, and then eventually the villains got exponentially larger, where he actually had to start putting in the effort to beat them when it came to Mercenary Town. Same with Soma. When he got into that school, he started winning a lot of fights very fucking easily. But as the series progressed, it's just he can't just keep going with nothing. Without putting in the effort, and he actually does start putting in effort again. Not again, but more. And you can actually see the fruits of his labor in the series. Because at the start, it's more Soma, he's a god. He's not a god, he's
he's just kind of...
he's becoming god. And
then
then
no one expects him to be this good at just being from a diner. Everyone around him's from these top either restaurants or families who have some chain of connection with food in some way. Either be in the actual restaurant business or just selling produce or products at a high quality or quantity. These are the kids that he's just surrounded by rich kids almost. And yet this is someone just from a diner in a small town. Johnny Joestar. So
what a cunt.
Now. Johnny Joestar. I'm completely flipping the script.
No, I love him. He's a cunt though.
Yeah, he is. But the reason why I said this before is my middle is not rooted in any sort of just I like the character like yours too were. Of course I love the character, but I genuinely think that this is the best protagonist in all of JoJo's Bizarre Adventures. Especially for what the story and part actually meant in the overall scheme of things. Johnny is phenomenal. He's amazing. He's a character who starts out kind of trying to go through a shortcut way to be better, and then because of that is the cause of so much destruction in his own life. But then he progresses and continues to a point where he has to go the slow way, and I think it's even progressed and improved by the lessons and everything he learns from the Joe Bro in this part, which is Alex. Say his name.
Gyro.
No, you have to say the full name.
Gyro Sapelli.
That's right. I didn't forget. I just wanted you to say a big Chadless.
People consider Gyro the main character of Part 7. But I don't understand that.
Although he's not my favorite Joestar or JoJo, I can't help but appreciate his character and everything that he accomplishes through going the slow way and going through everything. Although he is a bit of an ass, especially in the beginning, everything that he learns from the people around him and going into the race of the Steel Ball Run race, which is a long race across the entirety of America, kind of.
Yeah.
It's just great.
From one side to the other.
Yeah. There's so much more I could say, but I don't want to spoil so much of it. So I've been very vague in my things I've said. But I think to have someone so strong as a protagonist for what Part 7 was, which was like a reset button for Iraqi, just improved the quality of the story even further. Yeah.
Because this was because with the first 6 parts, it was about something.
He had a direction.
Jonathan. It was like Jonathan's Bloodline. Everyone here is like kind of hard, but this is a vaguely soft reboot. And now Johnny is not a character with that mindset of this guy has a kind heart. No. And it makes Paul a far more interesting.
Even because like his stand ability is also very different from any other ones, because this story is really just about his development, and it is a coming through. I wouldn't say coming of age story. I was going to say like I don't know. It's a lot about progression and who you are, and I think his stand accomplishes this as well, because his stand is very different. Usually stands are just this one thing, this one being. But with him, the reason why I say he's the best JoJo protagonist is because he goes through development better than any other one goes through. And his stand even reflects this with how his stand evolves itself as the story progresses as well. Which we have seen before in other parts, but I don't know, there was just something so amazing about how Johnny Joestar did it in the story. Although, yes, he is a bit of a cunt. He's still so great. Moving on to my nose-picking duo. Akichi Onizuka, the protagonist of Great Teacher Onizuka. This is where we're getting to different kinds of territory. He's... how do I put this? He's not the best. He's just a man who wants to be a great teacher, and he thinks school should be fun, so he teaches his kids life lessons, and even just the way he connects with the kids on their own level, and the insane kind of ways he would go to kind of help his class, even though he's given like the worst class that always like psychologically abuses the teachers. He's not fazed by it. Of course, like it's even propelled by the extra content we get from in the manga, with like you get his complete backstory of how he was like a street punk and criminal and like stuff, and yet he's gone from that to being like a head of a gang, like a street gang as a teenager, to him becoming a teacher. And he genuinely is a great teacher, because he teaches his kids stuff that, especially for Japanese schools as well, like he thinks there should be more to school than just learning. Even though that's what it's there for. I don't know what else to say about him. He is a great Chad. He's amazing. The way he does stuff, like there was a scene like early on where it's like the PTA wants to get him fired, and he has a broken arm from saving a kid from jumping off like the school roof, and he just shows up in a monkey costume, not taking any of it seriously, because he knows that no matter what they say back to him, he knows what he did was right. But he still shows up in a monkey costume, and it's hilarious.
Monkey.
But even then, I don't know how to explain this man. He is clearly very flawed. Even this point where it's like he has to study for a test that he never took with his class, and you see him in the class And he's just this disruptive kid, isn't he? Even though he's an adult. And by the time, like, the exam actually comes, due to other events, he has been shot. And he's actually bleeding out while he did the test. And the only way he was allowed to continue being a teacher is if he got 100%. And so to see him finish the test, blood covering the floor, and he's just continuous pushing to be the best, to be better than who he was as a character, is kind of why I love him. A lot of these characters are flawed in a lot of ways, or they're not as special as what they're meant to be. And I think that's my overall theme with my list, is that they've come from somewhere different to be someone better than who they were. That is a very key theme with my protagonists. Minus Kenma. Kenma's a kind of special case. Speaking of another nose picker, Gintoki Sakata.
What a legend.
What a legend. I'm looking at him right now. Not on my screen, on my table. He's looking back at me. He's holding his sword out. Oh, what a man. Parfaits. Am I right? Strawberry parfaits. Gintoki he's mind-boggling in a lot of ways. He's my favourite anime character of all time. And it's so weird to even just choose your favourite protagonist, like a protagonist to be your favourite character, because to me I always see the protagonist as someone who's very bland, like kind of Luke Skywalker, what we were saying before, and I feel it's easier to connect with the other characters that are around him. But knowing Gintama and a lot of these series, like these are a lot of my favourite characters in the series. But with Gintoki himself, because like we go into Gintama not really knowing kind of the past and what life he's led, he just kind of just continues on with what he does. It is a bit slice of lifey, but it's also very comedy, and it handles its serious moments really well. Like obviously, Alex, you had recently seen the what is it, the district. I forget what the arc's called. The district with Tsukio and the kid and the brothels.
So it's just the why?
Yeah, that. But you see him and you see everything he went through just to kind of fight the quote-unquote villain of the arc. And yet by the end of it, you kind of actually start caring a little bit about the villain. Because he's not there just to fight, because it's shown. Yeah. Gintoki is just such an amazing character, and I think because there is this self-aware nature to Gintama as well, it just adds so many different levels, and there's so much I could talk about in terms of Gintama, but I don't want to go on too long for Gintoki.
Aw.
Why? What would you add to this?
I don't know, I did Gintoki.
What, you're not going to add anything to Gintoki?
What would I want to add?
Yeah, it's so hard to talk about him because there's just so much to the world and to the character that it's hard to talk about. And the things I should be talking about are just massive spoilers.
Yeah, don't say that.
Yeah, exactly, so I can't really talk. Even though I can talk about it for an hour. Strawberry parfaits. Alright, moving on. Guts.
Yeah.
Guts. He has the most tragic backstory ever. Is that fair to say? Everyone says it all the time. He has one of the most tragic backstories.
I wouldn't disagree with it.
Of all time.
Let's see. Anyone... I'm going to say yes, because I can't think of anyone that has a worse one.
The man was born in a pool of his mother's blood.
Imagine.
And the only coping mechanism and comfort he had in his childhood and life, although abused and was put in such a hard situation, was his big sword.
A hard situation was put in him.
Shut up. But even then, it's like, again, this is a story about someone who's been through the darkness and kind of comes to a point differently. Gintoki went through this a bit as well in his backstory and past, which shows me why I love these characters as well. with Guts, it's so different because we see him bond with people. And I think it's even propelled why he is a great protagonist. Due to the opposite nature with the biggest antagonist of the series, Griffith, which I'll talk about a little bit soon. but still, like, Griffith is almost the exact opposite to Guts. He's someone who's eloquent. He's decisive. He has white hair. He's someone a little bit more technique and quality. Yet Guts is a man with the black hair, muscular, covered in scars, would get stabbed just to get a finishing strike, and someone who's more rough and things. But to see him even progress, because when you go into Berserk, the great fantasy series that it is, dark fantasy even, Guts is someone just so, I don't know how to put it, he's just so impressive to continue on with his life, because there's so many points in his life where it feels like he should just give up, and yet he doesn't. And even just losing things like people he loves, literally, and even going through and watching horrors, literal horrors in front of his face, and to see him continuously push forward is kind of what makes this character, Alex, endearing, you dumbass.
Endearing!
You're
Despite all the shit he's gone through, he's actually an incredibly enduring protagonist.
Even like in
I don't know
first,
how you could possibly still.
Yeah.
Hope for
Even in the
something
first
better
arc
after
of
everything he
thing,
has.
like the people he saved in like that first arc, where we don't know his past at all and kind of goes through it. It's like he kind of puts himself as the antagonist to the person he kind of saved in the story, so that they can live on and they can have something to continue on with. Even if he's seen as someone who's bad or evil, it doesn't matter. He finds a way to live on, and I don't think anyone should just like fall into a deep dark despair. And he definitely is probably the strongest character on this list, from someone who's gone from somewhere that's dark and depressing, meant to be slaughtered, and is kind of a little bit of a nobody, but still continues on with the story, and it's just impressive and great. Again, I can't talk a lot because of spoilers. Now, let me just...
Monkey.
No, let me. Monkey D. Luffy is the greatest protagonist of all time, in my opinion.
Okay.
That is my opinion.
You've gotten it out of the way. Good to get it all out.
I'm getting a little nervous because he's just so good. Luffy
Tell us about it.
Luffy is someone who lives in the moment. He's someone who doesn't care what your past entails. He only cares about who you are now. He cares about the people around him, his friends and family. And I think why he is such a strong character is tied into my favourite arc in my favourite saga in all of One Piece, which is of course Marineford, is because we get to see him be on his own for once. And it's such a dramatic change from other shonen who are constantly surrounded by people they know and friends. And then he gets put in this situation where literally everyone was a former enemy, yet he makes friends with them and kind of pushes them because he doesn't care. Just because you're an enemy then doesn't mean you have to be one now. And it's kind of one of those things where I don't think he is a hero. I don't think he is a villain, even though he's seen as a pirate. Due to his nature, he just doesn't care all too much. He just wants to protect the things around him. The people that kind of... the people that kind of help him and push him and make him what he is and wants to be. The people who push him towards his dream as if they were wings, helping him fly to reach that Pirate King goal that he has. and it kind of also stems from the past and his backstory and everything he went through as a child. Meeting Shanks meant so much to him. Getting the Straw Hat from a man who literally gave up an arm for the new generation in Luffy. It's just mind-boggling how someone could be so amazing. Like, there's so many moments with Luffy just being Luffy without caring about things like what the plans are, what to do, and blah 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 blah. Realistically, even with Luffy, we see him at his lowest moments. We see him fail over and over again, yet he still gets back up. And I think that's incredibly strong. We see him cry, and he is that character like Goku. When you see him mad, you know something's wrong. When you've pissed this man off, you know he's mad. And I think even just with the story itself, he's not a man like Naruto or Ichigo or Goku who has this insane power of strength within them. He's just someone who, or like planet destroying strength or mountain destroying. He's just a man who, and I think that's also a stem, like just the power system in Dragon Ball itself as well is very leveled and scaled very well. Because it doesn't focus on it. It focuses more on the story, the characters, everything that goes on. And the fact that we don't even need Luffy to be there. It just shows how well the One Piece world is. We can go chapters and chapters and chapters without seeing Luffy. Because we don't need to. We understand what he's trying to do right now. We can focus on other things. And he will be back sometime later. We don't need to focus on him. I have so much more I could say, but I kind of want to take a break just to hear your opinion.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
It's just pretty good. Fuck.
Okay, I'll move on. For another moment that I think is very great with Luffy is seeing how far he'll go to push himself for the people around him. For one instance, when like his navigator is sick, his cook had done so much to protect them from the oncoming storm that was a bunch of bear bunny things attack them, as well as avalanches, and he climbs a ridiculous height in his bare hands without wearing proper like cold gear in a winter storm. He continues, pushes himself, his hands bleeding, and when he reaches the top, the only thing he says is to save his friends. I think that's just great. That's just great. Oh.
Yeah,
I also a nice thing I find with Luffy is you'll know he often gives characters nicknames just to make it easier to remember them. The only characters he calls by names are his crewmates.
Yeah.
And the only people he actually bothers to remember the names of.
Mm.
Gold Roger who? This is Roronoa Zoro.
That is true, yeah. I think I should stop talking because I could do a 3-hour stream just talking about Luffy himself. So I'm just gonna go because it's me again right now. So it's quick time, quick pace. Oh god! All right, we're going back in the same order from the backwards S. Anel. He's kind of that Master Chief character for me, which I just love now.
We're speedrunning L.
I mean, Anel, what can I say about him? He's a man who thinks he's a god, thinks he's amazing, thinks he's everything, thinks no one is above him, and yet gets beaten by someone just because they have the right ability to beat the shit out of him. And I think the narcissism that's shown, especially in that arc that deals in like heavy things like religion, property, like it links in with so many real world aspects to life, yet you just have this presence of a man who you just think like, fuck, how the hell are we gonna beat this? And then he realizes once he finally shows up, Luffy finally shows up and beats the ever-loving shit out of him. Joker, I kind of just had to put Joker there just because of who the Joker is and what he means in terms of comics.
Did you only have like Japanese characters in your protagonists?
Yes.
And this is your one
This is
Your
my
one-
one Western choice, is the Joker.
epic.
Just because, like, I just love the Joker. He's one of those antagonistic people he doesn't really want to beat Batman. He just kind of loves the dance that he does with Batman. And he's someone who's psychotically smart at the same time. And I think it's just incredible. Anytime, like, you see the Joker, you know something's happening. Because he just is the face of a true antagonist. And a true opposite to one of the biggest heroes in the entire world. A household name of Batman. Johan. I can't talk a lot about Johan because there are a lot of spoilers when it comes to Johan.
We
in
talked
terms
a
of
lot
the
about
story.
Rohan when it came to
Yeah,
Yes.
I did talk about it a bit, but to kind of explore other angles is like he's not really the person that you expect him to be, yet he does such a good job at creating this idea of a monster, even though he just looks like a complete gentleman of a German man. Yeah, that's all I'll say about that. Pain is purely ideology. That arc got me just because of ideology. Everything Payne says is fully true. He's not a bad person for what he wants to do. Sure, he's killed many. He killed.
Sure, he's a murderer.
Sure, he's a murderer, but like
Is?
a lot of people get killed in Naruto, and Naruto even is technically a murderer as well.
Technically, there's no technicality.
I mean,
That's all that matters.
Yeah, no, but like, I feel like there's a difference between like, killing someone and murdering. There's a difference between war
yeah.
and just murder.
Yeah. But I think it's really well done in terms of Payne's case and the story that is happening around him. Just because of who Payne is, which also a great image for Payne, might I just say. And even just realizing, oh, this person killed my sensei. This person
That's a shit.
this person did so much harm to me. And it's the story we've literally seen Sasuke walk through. Like his in act for revenge. But Naruto didn't go in it for revenge. He did it for the village and the people that he still has. He didn't do it just for Jiraiya. He did it for the people and everyone, to protect them and to not be the one thing that they assume he is a monster. And I think that's even shown in with what Naruto goes through and his evolution in the story, and how just one simple book could change something so drastically. And he's an amazing antagonist. I couldn't put. I think he would be here either way. Back to the middle, part 7 again. The villain of part 7, who is often, I think, there's in the community, is shown as he's the true protagonist, because realistically, what he was attempting to do wasn't really bad by any means. He was trying to create wealth and stability for the United States of America as the president, and he's one of those. Although he is meant to be the villain, every angle he goes through, everything he tries to do, is for America itself. And honestly, I think he's quite endearing to me as a president, and clearly the best president of the United States of America, which is a fictional one that a man wrote in a room.
Was he in a room?
I'm pretty sure he was in a room.
Oh, you never know.
He's probably in a room. What he's
That-
going to be writing?
Oh, all we
parts
know,
of-
he was writing it on his balcony, upside down.
Upside down.
As one does.
What's your
Yes, he does.
What's your opinion on funny?
Funny, he's funny, literally.
Yeah, he is.
I love that. His motivations in the story wasn't because he was horny for Dio or that he was Dio,
No.
or that he likes hands, but
Yeah.
that he is trying to fight for his country. He is a patriot.
Yeah.
First and foremost, president of the United States.
And Sim is shown to us by his past and his biggest inspiration being his father.
Mhm.
As,
He understands the idea of the handkerchief, that
Yeah.
the one who takes the first handkerchief dictates the order of the rest of the table, right? And he needs to take that first handkerchief. He needs to want to set the standards for this country, which is so new and in its infancy. And he needs to make sure it is prosperous, and it's really interesting. It's not even like Johnny is particularly someone who wants America to fail. He's got his own personal goals and ideas in mind, and it's not like they're against each other. It's more so that each of their own goals conflict with each other in a way, and it's not just like straight up, "Oh, I hate America, fuck America," and it's like, "I'm the president." No, it's their own personal ideas and goals, and they both need to achieve that with this race.
I think he's also the first antagonist out of all of them that shows up and is just that person who has power in other ways than just his actual strength. Like with Dio, we see him and he gets powers and blah blah blah. And then you meet Kaz. Kaz is already a powerful being. Then Dio again. Then you go back to a person with just who was raised in a curious manner. I guess they are the antagonists to this as well, the mafia, whatever. And then to someone who's horny for Dio. And then to this, which is a character all separate to himself. And I'm sure, like, many people love Funny Valentine so much. As well as, I'm sure a lot of people consider this person to be their favourite character, but for me, he's my favourite antagonist of all Joe's, because he's the one I can at least understand and appreciate. And and it's like, I can see why he's made the choices and why he's doing this. I completely understand it. It's not just because of the other one randomly, "Oh, I have strength, I will take over the world, blah, 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 blah." This person has a motive to what he is doing. And I think I can really appreciate that in JoJo's. Ask a lad.
The lad.
He's a lad. He's a Chad lad, as I often call him. Yeah.
Ask a Chad.
He's that person who Thorfinn wants to kill. And
then he didn't.
And then he didn't.
Just unlucky, innit?
It's really fucking unlucky.
It's more, I think, the impact
Didn't do his fucking job, obviously.
I think why I think I put him on this list is due to the impact he actually has on the story and Thorfinn himself. To a greater deal. Like, we talked about it when you left us. We were talking about it a bit, so I don't think we have to talk a lot about Thor.
Yeah.
We have to talk a lot about Thorfinn and Askeladd's kind of relationship, because it was the one of, "I will kill you. You are my enemy, but you're also kind of the person who's teaching me in some ways." What?
But like,
and he's Welsh.
The conviction of this man and the seething hate for this group of people, racism, frankly, that he works with, his own goals into what's the word? That he keeps under wraps in order to have Wales, not Welsh, Wales be prosperous, even though he's a Viking, and he's one of the most cunning villains I've seen. Not villains, antagonists and characters, frankly. And fuck words. I can't do podcasts, man. That means I have to talk.
You do have to talk, yes.
Nah, I think we've talked enough about the series itself.
Yeah, we talked plenty about the one.
Crowler.
Why do you like Crawler Lucifer? Why is he one of your top 9 antagonists?
Honestly, because you guys took a lot of the good antagonists. And I had to come up with ones that were a bit more unique. One that clearly deserves to be there is the next one I will talk about, and I think he should be swapped from Griffith. I did the order very stupidly, but still. I think he's someone who's very interesting. We don't know a lot about him, but he's someone who's just so complex. It mind boggles me how he could have such a very interesting power, because it's like our first real take of a specialist ability in Hunter x Hunter, isn't it? And to have that power, it needs to be someone very adaptable. But
Kurapika's might have been first, but
his is a bit, but his isn't initially specialty.
Yeah.
This is a person who starts off with a specialist ability.
Yeah.
And he's very cunning. Seeing him fight, even in the manga, especially. But
it's also very well executed. His power, in the sense that
he doesn't feel overpowered.
Like how he's going to keep the book open and all that. I think that's a very intelligent way of using it.
But other than that, like I just love his whole persona, everything he does, and it's partially the reason why York New City is my favorite arc in Hunter x Hunter.
Yeah, fair enough.
Is just because of who Krollo is and what he represents.
That fight was pretty good.
And it kind of makes me want to... I really want to see more of Krollo and why he started this organization of the spiders. What's his motive? That we really don't know all that much about Krollo yet. I just find him so fascinating. Even like the thing where he just is hanging out with Neon. Like just seeing him just talk to her, and the way he speaks as well just alters. And stealing abilities, watching him steal an ability was also very impressive. But I love Krollo. He's my favorite Hunter x Hunter character. That's all I can really say.
Fair enough.
And there's like I can't spoil much about what happens in the manga with him, but I'm just gonna say it was a fucking insane. It was amazing. I do want to kind of skip Dofi right now and move on to Griffith, just because that'll be a little bit easier to say because I've already talked about it a bit. Griffith is the exact opposite to Guts, and that is why he is brilliant. He's a brilliant written character to someone whose comfort wasn't a sword like Guts, but it was Guts itself. Guts himself was what came to be Griffith's comfort. And that kind of shows him once he loses Guts, the person who has his back, especially after being just kind of just this guy that they picked up along the way, to someone whose value is shown to Griffith. And Griffith just continues on. I can't spoil too much of what happened in the manga, Alex. But still, I can talk about what happens in the backstory and all that crap. And everything he does and all the moves he makes is kind of just interesting. Even seeing him just court the princess or whatever it was. And then to see him, after a little bit forcing himself onto her in a really pushy manner, just see him kind of emotionally break down. And Guts not being there also kind of propelled him into a greater stage of darkness. To then what he does in the story is just, you just want to hate him. But he's also such a well-written character that you can't hate him. I don't know what else to say about him. I talked a little bit more.
I can hate Griffith.
You can hate Griffith, but he's also someone who's so interesting and fascinating. And I think he's the perfect character to be like the opposite to Guts, and even just like the story that happened recently is more about him getting back into the life that he lost and the things that he destroyed. Yeah. Now the last one, I'm going back to Dolphy. Don Quixote do Flamingo, the greatest antagonist in all of One Piece. Only starting to be contested by Kaido, but that's not the point. Kaido, we still don't know that much about Kaido, so I can't really say that much. But Dofi, I don't know what to say, Alex, because almost everything I say would be a spoiler. What can I say without spoiling?
Let me have a thought.
He is a charismatic ruler who does what he thinks he deserves, and I think the levels that he kind of opposes Luffy at the same time, and even is an extension of like from Bellamy's point of view and what Doffy meant to Bellamy as well, and why Bellamy is such a good antagonist is because of the disrespect he does to people's dreams, even though that wasn't Doffy himself. Doffy's ideology and everything Doffy goes through, which is all complete spoiler. I don't know what to say about Doffy without you can't talk about Doffy without spoiling things.
Fair enough.
You can't talk about why he's so amazing without getting
Yeah.
into his backstory.
Without getting into his backstory, but just know, like this, I would put him up there with. I would actually put him ahead of a lot of your favorite antagonists, Caleb.
Fair enough.
See, a lot of problems would be fixed if Caleb just read the next saga.
What do you mean by like you not being able to explain shit?
Yeah, there's a lot that gets revealed in the next saga. It's a good place to kind of just be at but still. Next
So
one.
so far, what I'm in now, it hasn't pushed me forward that much. So it's just.
Next one is Alex's antagonists.
Oh yay!
Like if I end up forcing myself to read more, I'm just gonna end up hating the entire series.
Yo!
So.
I get to start with Gore the God Butcher?
Yeah, you do.
I'm now without a nose.
Yay! Oh, it's hardly man. That's something.
Well, you know.
Okay, so where to begin? Gore is a character. Who would start that? This character is a character. That's terrible. I'm so good at conversation, bro. But Gore is just a dude, right? He lived on a planet. He's lived on a planet with he's lived his entire life on a desolate planet. He's had to lick the bottom of rocks to get fucking sustenance. His mother died in front of a shrine. His wife claps onto falling rocks with his child. He's absolutely nothing on this world. And every time these tragic events happen, right before, they're like, you got to trust in the gods. The gods will come and give us salvation. They will help us. And they never did. Every single time. These people on this planet are living on a desert planet. They don't have... It's not sustainable for life as much as it fucking should be. There is no resources there that they can trust on. They have to constantly migrate to new lands. Maybe there'll be more bugs over there that they can eat. Maybe there'll be a bit of damp sand you can drink water from. His entire life has been agony. At every single turn, they're like, trust the gods will help you. And they never fucking did. He revolts against his people, saying the gods aren't fucking real. There are no gods. And then they cast him out. They can't talk shit about the gods will smite you down. So now he's alone in the desert, and that's when he stumbles upon... that's when these two gods fighting out crash land into the planet. They've both got spears cast into each other. One of the gods... one of their gods is there bleeding out, crying for help. And Gore, this character who has been living his entire life without the help of the gods, always asking for their assistance. He now sees a dying god in front of him asking for help. He loses his fucking mind. His wife is dead. His children are dead. Multiple. I forgot about the other kid. His mother died in front of a fucking shrine to these gods. He fucking takes the other guy's sword and just kills him. And then he takes their power for himself. This series supposes that every single sentient species in the universe of Marvel has their own pantheon of gods, or multiple. Yeah. And that each of these gods are higher beings, they're mighty beings, and they always look down on them. So at one point they may have been prosperous, and they may have helped these lower beings. And then at some point they're like way too good for them. And Gore is someone who had enough of their shit, pretty much. He decided to take matters in his own hands. If these gods were not going to help the people, if they're not going to do their job as higher beings to help these little people, he's going to fucking kill them. So using the power of the gods that fell, he went to every pantheon he could find and slaughtered them. He slaughtered hundreds and hundreds of gods and pantheons, and no one fucking noticed because no other pantheon of gods ever bothered to look down below them to see what's happening around them, except for Thor. Thor finally notices, why don't you have gods? And they're like, they don't exist. What? You have gods? No. So he goes to check and finds their version of Asgard, and they're dead. It also supposes that every pantheon in our world exists in Marvel, but the reason they don't exist now in current canon is because Gore had already killed them.
Right.
Because we saw a scene where he killed Chernobog from, I think, Russian football. And the way this series is able to retcon what Marvel's done with having every single series have gods, and then also say this is why they don't exist. Also creating a character with this deep seething hatred for the gods, for these beings that are supposed to be doing their jobs. And every time he goes to kill them, they're always whimpering in fear or pretending that they're better than him. He tortured a god of torture, and then he got that god of torture to tell him where his kids and wife was. That's the kind of man Gore the God Butcher is. Absolute fucking mad man on a quest of vengeance against these beings which refuse to do their fucking job. And that's why I fucking love Gore the God Butcher.
I don't think we can really say that much.
No, you can't.
Yeah.
It's not a single fucking thing. I've read this. I like Gore because a lot of my Marvel knowledge comes from surface level things. Shit I've Googled before. This is a series I've read. This is a character I know from the start to the end of how they are. They're going to be in Thor 4. I can't fucking wait. Christian Bale is going to be this cunt.
Actually?
Yeah. It's probably not going to be anything like it because it's directed by Taika Waititi. So it won't be nearly as dark as I've just described. But I love how this character, the series, supposes this concept, and then it explains away why it doesn't exist. It also, one of my favorite lines described his what his people's belief of heaven and hell are. He their world's people believes that if you are good and you do right by others, that you become a star in the sky and you become a benevolent light that shines upon your ancestors to come. No, ancestors to come. Ancestors the way around. The future generations. But if you're a shit cunt, you are the light that gets added to the sun, and then you'll continue to burn this planet, this desert planet. So the more shit you do, basically, the brighter the sun becomes, the hotter it gets, the more you damn the people of the future. And that's a throwaway line, and I found it one of the best pieces of world building I've seen. Just to add more depth to the idea that there are all these pantheons and all these different people with all these different beliefs of what happens after you die. Yep, okay, I've spoken enough.
I speed ran through mine.
Yeah, but I literally reread the series just to talk about it, and now I appreciate it more. Let's speed run the rest of them. Darth Vader.
Well, I mean...
It's Darth Vader, to be fair.
Yeah, fair enough.
It is iconic as a villain.
I also just love Anakin as a character throughout.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. This is good
And
content.
I love that after what Caleb said, how Luke went to the dark side and pulled himself back. I find it interesting that Anakin's character wasn't able to pull himself out of it, and now he has to live with the consequence of Padme's death.
I love that
Because he couldn't. Because when he got to that point, when he got to the point where he turned to the dark side and he killed Mace Windu, it's sort of, what can he do now? He's already gone down that path, and then when Padme dies, it's like, well, he can't come back. Like, how can he come back? You know, how can
he has nothing else to live for.
He's done all this shit. He can't. There's no chance for him, and he constantly believes that he can never come back. And then Luke comes along and says, "No, you can."
Darth Vader on the absolute unit list.
Yeah.
His very presence in any scene. Look at Rogue One.
That's true. That is very true.
Yeah, everyone knows Darth Vader. Everyone understands.
Yeah,
I love Darth Vader, and I'm not a Star Wars fan.
I know.
I have a pop of Darth Vader, and I have a lot of his comics.
I think I have Darth Vader's lightsaber.
Oh,
That's how much. That's like I love Darth Vader. Darth Vader's so good. I assume we're going to talk a little bit more about him later.
yeah, because he's on mine as well.
Yeah. But Kingpin, I don't really like Kingpin.
Kingpin, to be honest, I haven't read too much on Kingpin. I'm mostly talking about conceptually and also from the Daredevil series.
I mean, I think he transcends just Daredevil a lot.
Well, yeah.
Like a lot of street level things always, somewhere, at some point, connect back to Kingpin.
Kingpin is the Kingpin. He is the master. He's the king of crime. He controls the underworld of the entirety of New York. And he's rather fucking good at it, too. He's absolutely willing to get his hands dirty, and in the Ultimate comics as well, he's an absolute fucking unit that can crush people's skulls on a whim. He has absolute control over any person living in New York. He's able to know exactly what he needs to do to be able to manipulate them and get them to bend to his will. And he's just a fat bloke with money.
That's right.
And I've seen it a lot of times, but the way I've seen his absolute control over the people is chilling, even at times. And I couldn't help but add him on this list because he's just that good.
That good.
Love Kingpin. Next one, Vulture. This one particularly the movie Vulture, because I really enjoyed his
Batman.
Yeah, Batman. Like,
Batman.
He loves being bird people. Not bird people, winged people.
It's Batman.
Yeah.
Oh, Batman.
But the fact that he's not a villain, really, because all these other ones are almost the antagonists.
He's just a guy down on his luck.
He's a guy that invested so much to help his family, and then the higher ups, the government decided, or Tony Stark decided, no, fuck you, and we're not giving you your money back either. And then he gets this opportunity to make back what he's deserved, what he's owed, to help fund his daughter's education, because apparently it's expensive as fuck over there.
yeah.
It is.
And for some reason, I find him just as endearing as Peter Parker occasionally in that film. Peter Parker in that film specifically, not
Doctor Octopus is a better villain.
Doctor Octopus was.
If you were gonna pick a Spider-Man villain, you and I both would have picked Doctor Octopus. I feel.
Yeah, if I had to go with a comic book
Yeah.
Spider-Man villain, but I decided I want to give some love to the Vulture from Homecoming.
Yeah.
Because Doc Ock is amazing.
Mm.
You should have done that for Protagonists. Yeah, we spoke about Doc Ock before.
We'll have a comic
For
book
some
one.
reason, this guy who just wants to be a good father wants to help his daughter through school, and the means he has to, and then it's a means to an end, and the end is to him righteous, but the means is crime, and it gets people back. Next, Tsukasa. I don't like Tsukasa as much as I like what he represents in this series with Doctor Stone.
He's men muscles.
The ideals with the War of Ideals in the Stone Wars, season 2 of the anime, and in the manga.
It never registers me that that's season 2.
Season 2 of Stone Wars.
Yeah, it just doesn't register because I've been reading it for so long.
Yeah, so glad I read this.
You're welcome.
Also believes that in the survival of the fittest of the sort, he believes that if you revive everyone on the planet, all the people that were in power will gain power again, and they will still learn to abuse it. Why don't we just revive the people who are good? Revive the people who can build the society to be better, instead of getting all the old people with ideals that they will not change to rule over us again.
But then that serves as a problem as well, because that just means the people with more strength will rule over the ones who are weaker.
Yeah.
And so Senku decides to build a gun.
Yeah, and the main character, the scientist, is like, no, we need to save everyone. Every human has the right to live in this world, and I'm going to save them all 7 billion of them. Kale, do you know the premise of Dr. Stone?
No.
Okay, I should have started with that one.
Yeah.
Everyone in the world gets turned to stone. 3,700 years later, Senku wakes up. So pretty much everyone has been petrified, and it's the main character's job to wake everyone up from their
But humanity still lives on through from that ages ago. through people who weren't on Earth when the event happened.
Oh yeah, and some astronauts made it
Yeah.
back onto Earth. They weren't petrified, and then their bloodline
Continued.
persisted.
Even though technically there was a lot of incest going on, but it just kind of skips over that. Yeah.
That's what happens when you got 6 blokes. Not blokes. 6 people, 3 of them.
And they're all like
Or-
different races as well, and it's so weird that they're in Japan as well. That it's like these people with Russian blood
Point is,
and
it's like a
American.
post-apocalypse thing, and these 2 people are just, have an idyllic war about how should humanity live from here on forth, and that's where like Tsukasa, the ideals he pushes.
And it's interesting to see like this group of people because they are seen as the primitive ones, due to the nature that they didn't have access to technology or they didn't evolve enough to process things. So when Senku kind of comes along with them, that's why I think Chrome is such a good character as well, because Chrome is that one person who questions things, and you'll always have one of those people.
Let's go.
Okay.
Let's speedrun this. N is funny. I'm going to talk about why I think, because the characters in Dorohedoro, it is a dark fantasy series, but it's not dark. It's a dark fantasy setting, but the characters are funny.
Is that it?
No. So N is like the Kingpin, where he's like the king of crime. Oh no, he's a very powerful individual with a lot of influence over their world, right? He's got 2 subordinates, cleaners. They're the people who he sends to kill people. One of them has the power of destruction magic, and the other one has the strongest healing magic in that world. One of his closest subordinates has the power to nullify all magic. Another one has the ability to disassemble his atoms so much that he's more than invisible. Right? He's looking for a time-traveling sorcerer. He's got some of the most powerful individuals under his belt. Can you tell me what you think his magic is, Caleb?
Sex.
This man that controls all these incredibly powerful individuals, what power does he have?
X-ray vision.
X-ray vision. I'll tell you what, you're absolutely incorrect. He has the power to make and turn things into mushrooms.
That's fair enough.
He is, and he's the most powerful sorcerer in his world. Just with the power to turn things into mushrooms, he is still the most powerful sorcerer in that fucking world because he just has that much magic and that much dedication to his craft. And I find that fucking hilarious, and that's why he's on here. Because despite the fact he's a fucking crime boss and he's got the most powerful magic users under his belt, he has the power to specifically turn things into mushrooms or just make mushrooms.
Right.
Yeah.
I love it.
Fair enough.
That's it. That's all I got for
I
you.
can't
He's not even the
really
main
talk too
antagonist of
much.
the series.
I barely remember the series.
Yeah, that's fair. The anime didn't have enough conclusion.
Yeah.
It was like the first. It was a prologue of a prologue. It was whatever.
Yeah.
Anime was fun, but it didn't cover a proper story. Tao Pai Pai, Mercenary Tao.
Ciao, bye bye.
Is it the right way? Wait, yeah. Oh no, I went the wrong way. I went to Vulture.
Yeah, I know. It doesn't matter.
Oh well, who gives a shit? Mercenary Tao. Now, the reason I've put Mercenary Tao on this list is because every fight that Goku was in before the series, he clapped them.
Yeah.
Every time that they got an advantage over him is because there was something Goku could not control. General Blue is a cunt who could like mind control, or some shit, right? He had mental powers, and Goku was a dumb kid. Of course, they're going to work with him. But there was no other physical threat in the series until this point where Goku was actually threatened. Tao Pai Pai added actual threat to Goku's character and almost killed him. There was consequence, there was suspense, and there was tension for the first fucking time in Dragon Ball, and that's why I put him on this list.
Why does it feel like Caleb's saving everything for his list?
Saving his voice for when he gets to Madara.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't really have much else to say about Mercenary Tao. I mean, you sort of summed up what made him good.
Aside from that, he's not that much more interesting of a character. But
No.
aside from what he brought to the story at that point. Now let's move on to Cell.
Yes.
I have no idea why I put Cell in here. I just love Cell Saga so much, and him as a villain, but I don't really know what to say.
He's so interesting because he is that symbol of someone who was created, but he doesn't give that feeling or impression that like he is this perfect being as well. Even though he's called Perfect Cell, he's just the enemy, and you know he's the enemy. And I think just what he meant for the entire series, the connection with the past, future, the way the everything kind of folds together, works incredibly well with Cell, and just the person who represents everything that they have learnt up to that point, bringing back villains from the Red Ribbon Army. And Cell just kind of pushes that forward, and it even evolves into the development of Gohan and what this meant for Gohan.
Gohan.
Bruh.
I started, you Alex. Finish.
Fuck, finish? Ejaculate.
You're the one who put Cell on there.
Yeah.
I know I'm the one that put Cell on there, but I don't.
Then
I do agree. He might be my favorite Dragon Ball villain, aside from like
it's my favorite.
Here, like Tien. I'd say Tien's my favorite character, but not my favorite villain.
I think just what he meant to everything.
I feel Cell's strength and presence and the way that it forced Gohan to grow as a character, and it was the combined effort at the end with all of them that got Cell to finally buckle and die, and the fact that it was Cell that killed Goku and let him die and having Goku still be dead for a long time. Is no one's watching. That's Dragon Ball. I feel that maybe I associate a lot of his charismatic character and the arc together. So I put him as one of my favorite villains because I just love the Cell saga so much, and and the way he's able to, after he becomes Perfect Cell, notably, in the charisma he holds, and just the power he has over the other characters. It's very interesting and very entertaining to watch. It's also the sudden shift between the wimpy second form, and then he fucking eats Android 18 or some shit. And suddenly, incredibly, shut your fucking.
But like what I said, I think he's the perfect character as someone who represents everything that they have learned up to that point. Literally using the Kamehameha, using their techniques, and even just being partially DNA's partially coming from them. He's everything that they had fought against. He was
a culmination of everything up until that point.
And to have Gohan beat him with the pushing on of the one-handed Kamehameha, which is one of the greatest scenes in all of Dragon Ball Z.
Oh, yeah.
It's just so amazing.
I also want to, even though I watched Z-Kai, I also want to bring notes of this Cell's theme, which I went ahead and listened to because it's fucking awesome as fuck.
The one from Kyle's Z?
Z.
Right. I can't remember what. Oh, hang on, no. Hang on, I'm gonna look it up because I think I remember.
Go listen to Cell's fucking theme. It's fucking cool.
I
hear it all
listening to it and absolutely loving it. Yeah. No, yeah.
Fantastic.
That's good. Yeah.
And that's me appreciating that theme as someone who hadn't even watched Z. I watched Z-Kai.
Yeah, to get to it faster.
Last and not least at all is Licked. Licky.
Totally.
Licky. Oh yeah, and yeah, I actually want to talk more about Patrick than I want to do about Licked. I consider them in the same bin.
I mean, they are the same thing.
Well, they're two different people.
Yeah, but
like, they're the same antagonistic force. One thing, Black Clover handles racism and the difference between middle class, high class, and low class incredibly well. And one of the ways they did that was through the backstory of Licked, who is an elf, and elves just don't exist in the Black Clover world anymore. Why? Because people hundreds of years ago fucking killed them. They were scared of the elves. And he's not particularly a survivor, but through some magic spell or another managed to persist in the body of one of the most powerful characters in the series, and as a split personality kind of thing. with Vengeance, and I really love Partry and Vengeance sharing that body. And I hope people understand with Black Clover, except for people who just can't process spoilers at the moment. Caleb. I love that. I love what Vengeance's character as well, having to be conflicted with his Wizard King, his dedication to his country and to his people, and also to his best friend, Partry, who lives inside of him, who has his own goals, ideals, and motivations. And I love that William, despite being one of the most powerful members of the Magic Squad brigades, isn't mentally strong enough to make a decision for himself and has to live with the decisions he let other people make for him. And of course, the whole elf invasion, the way the elves got their vengeance, and the fact that they were manipulated by this bastard, which I won't get into because he's not what I'm talking about, I find incredibly interesting, and I still think the elf invasion arc is my favorite. No, favorite? No, I like the Water Temple because that's what got me into it. But probably the best arc Black Clover has shown us so far. With Licht and Partry, what happened to them and the consequences, and that both sides weren't in the wrong. One of them wanted vengeance for their people after being massacred, and the other people who just weren't responsible for that have to suffer the consequences for that. And I love that Asta as a character is able to help bring understanding to this war, this conflict. I love you.
I more like the fact that Asta wasn't the one to win. Like, although like the other thing happened and stuff, Asta wasn't really the person who kind of won in the end. He's not the one who won the battle.
Well, no, because he wasn't powerful enough to. But yeah. It's him as a character, as a person, able to empathize with these villains and to get people on the same page. That I feel is what his strength was in that arc. And that's it for my villains. Unless Ethan has more to say on Licht Partry.
I don't really, honestly.
Yeah, that's fair.
You kind of said everything. I don't have anything more to say.
Caleb's list. I can't wait. Let's go.
Oh, here we go.
Boys,
the lads.
The lads.
The lads.
The reason we struggled so much in making our own antagonist lists.
Did I take on
especially those top three.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, we still both did Darth Vader anyway.
Yeah, because
I didn't want to.
Okay, I will do the exact same order we've all done that I started, and I'll end with. So the first boy is a good boy, Accelerator. The thing is, I was gonna put him on the protagonist list, but I'm like, no, I guess he's not like the main protagonist of the series, to be honest. But then when I did the antagonist, I'm like, hang on a minute, I can put him on here, so I can talk about him anyway. As you know, I love Accelerator.
Me too.
I like his arc. I think his arc is very nice. In Index, and then how they do him in Accelerator. Fuck Accelerator. That Scientific Accelerator is a good TV show. Very good spin-off. Very fun. But I just like how he goes from that person that's sort of like doesn't really, he just sort of wants to be stronger, and that's all he thinks. That's sort of where he thinks he has to go. But even when he's killing the clones, even when you see him being evil, one of the clones says to him, "Why are you talking to us? Because if you really wanted to kill us, why would you be talking? Why would you be prolonging it?" Oh, I think it was Last Order that said it. She was talking to him about how he would talk to the clones, and I found it very interesting that even when he was doing all that shit, there was still that sort of aspect of he didn't really want to do it, but because of the sort of atmosphere of the city, it sort of made him get to that point where he had to get stronger. He had to reach level 6, even though he didn't. Even after that, he didn't really seem to care that much. And then, eventually what he does for Last Order and all that just makes him, well, Alex's word of the day, endearing.
Endearing.
So that's pretty much what I've got to say about Accelerator. He's a good boy. I very much like his character, and I like where he and his ability is fucking. Oh, I'll never stop loving that ability he has, just to control vectors.
They're
It's
just
so
smart
creative.
with the abilities
Oh no,
in the series.
it's powerful, but not because it's powerful, because it's just smart how it works and what it does. It's like, yeah, that's overpowered, but not because he can destroy planets. It's because it's a smart ability.
Mm.
Moving on for that,
Zisker.
we've got Zisker, or Ghost Freak, as non-Omniverse watchers would know him as. I wanted to put a Ben 10 villain on here. I was tempted to put Vilgax, but I feel like, just me personally, I prefer Zisker.
Vilgax feels more like me.
Yeah.
He's a
And
meme.
Zisker, I just like him, his sort of origins, how he comes out of the Omnitrix, and how he
Persists.
yeah, and then even when he gets defeated the first time, and then they sort of build up to him returning. Can't remember what season it was. It might have been 2. 2 or 3. I can't remember which one. But
He's definitely one of the more interesting antagonists.
Yeah, and even then when he comes back in Omniverse, I love that.
That arc is great.
Arc where they go to Arnold Vanzel, and you sort of see more about where Ghost Freak comes from, and
how he kind of came to be the person he is.
And then when they finally deal with him, I think that's where they left him, and he's stayed there.
Yeah.
For like, I think he's forced to stay there like 100 years or something because of that fusion sunball thing. But yeah, I wanted to put a Ben 10 character, and I like him very much. He's very cool. Next we move on to.
We're starting to get very iconic.
Yeah,
Slowly.
So this is Tom Riddle, the man before he became Voldemort. I tend to prefer Tom Riddle over Voldemort. I mean, obviously they're the same person.
What?
I prefer that time where he was sort of becoming Voldemort, because I feel like it was very interesting to see him sort of manipulate teachers and manipulate people to try and find out more about the Horcruxes.
It shows why he was a Slytherin. The cunning nature that he had.
And getting the artifacts of the founders, and even when he took the ring from his grandfather, I believe it was, and it's something that, look, I don't blame the Half-Blood Prince movie for not going into, because it would have taken so long. But I love that all the times they went into the Pensive and explored Riddle's backstory and explored his background, because I just found it very interesting. And a character like him, because he's made to be this truly evil character, this character that has no ability to love or have compassion, but because that is a fact about his character, I think that's what makes him so interesting. You have other characters which are evil, they just seem to lack compassion because they're just bad, but with Tom Riddle, there's an actual reason why he can't love, why he can't do that, and it creates that difference between him and Harry, which I think makes him such a great antagonist, especially for that series.
As well as learning like how Harry and Voldemort both come from the same line of the Pebble brothers.
Yeah.
Because the ring
and how similar they
is
are
something
as
that
well.
was handed down through the generations as the same way as the cloak. The only one that wasn't was the wand.
Yeah.
But it's also interesting to know that, like, with someone like Tom Riddle, when I rewatched the movies, I fully sat there, considered which one is my favourite film, and my favourite one, or favourite book as well, would have to be Chamber of Secrets, for the sheer fact that like we thought like Voldemort's done, right? We think Voldemort's done. There's nothing else that could happen. So just being there at the end and realizing that this is the enemy, not knowing like Voldemort's real name is Tom Riddle, it's kind of just it kind of fucks with you a little bit, and then he's just there, and we see him so young, yet I can understand why people would follow him. Exactly. And that original, even in the scenes, like with the original actor who played the teenage thing, did such a good job at managing that nature that he had incredibly well. Yeah.
And I like Chamber. I think this is a different thing, but I think Chamber in general, and especially the way they handled him, I think the mystery they put forth was very interesting, and I thought that was very well done. So that's Tom Marvolo Riddle. Next is we got up to the Master, which Alex I don't think knows anything about the Master.
I do not know what this image is.
Okay, so
I can assume it's Doctor Who.
Yeah.
And if I'm wrong, okay, cool.
Yeah,
It is Doctor Who.
Because I did not have a second guess.
The Master is essentially like the Doctor. He's a Time Lord who ran away from Gallifrey, but unlike the Doctor, he does not go out there to help people to explore, to appreciate the universe. He goes out there to stir shit up and to be essentially an evil fuck. But what makes the Master so good is, I think, the fact that he is that antithesis of the Doctor. You have the Daleks and the Cybermen and all these other races and
but
monsters.
no one knows him as personally as this person, because the Master was like his best friend.
Yeah.
Growing up.
Yeah. But I think it's good because you have all these other monsters that are good. They're good. They're well thought out. But at the same time, they don't offer that. The Master is the antithesis of the Doctor. He is like the Doctor, but on the opposite end of the spectrum. He is the only person that is a real rival to the Doctor because he's just as smart as the Doctor. He's just as capable of doing things as the Doctor. The difference is their ideology and how they use what they use. And it's why I was sort of debating which Master to put on, either this one or another one. I don't want to spoil it because in case people want to watch it, I don't want that to be spoiled because that is a fantastic twist. But another one. The other one I like because the way they do their story and the way they sort of bring the Master almost like a sort of redemption arc. Well, it is a redemption arc to an extent.
Missy.
Yeah. But the one we have here was the first Master.
Which is which is like literally the only Master I don't have any experience with.
But I think he had such a presence. When he was there, he had a presence. He fucking killed the role. It's hard to exactly explain without someone watching it, but he was just I think a very interesting presence, and especially how he played off of John Pertwee, which is the third Doctor. The way he played off of him was very well. But I think the Master in general,
I think it's even proven like how his presence kind of stayed with the series, because he that is the face. Like he was the Master for basically the entire time.
Yeah.
Until like New Who, and he got more regenerations and crap and shit.
There was another one.
Yeah, I know.
After him, that was during the fourth Doctor, but
then he got his.
I don't think he was as good. I think the third Doctor's one was. Oh my god.
Yeah.
The only issue I have is that he was literally in most of the third Doctor's episode. Like it was one of those tropes where it's like, oh, who's the villain of this story? Oh, of course it's the fucking Master. Who else is it? But at least it was a good character. So every time it did happen, it's like, oh well, it's the Master again. But oh well, it's him, and he's fun to watch. So yeah, that's the Master. And then now we're getting into much more iconic. All these people, I think more people will know about, and everyone here.
Well, aside from Voldemort. Well, sorry.
No, we're going higher.
Yeah, now we're going to the more iconic. We start with Frieza.
You think Frieza's more iconic than Tom Riddle?
Yeah.
What?
I would definitely say that.
Because I'm more focused on Tom Riddle, not Voldemort.
Okay, yeah. If that's okay. Yeah.
So that's why I sort of say, if I put Voldemort, then potentially.
But it's also
But-
Frieza. It's Frieza.
Oh, okay. I'll put it like this: Frieza's a cunt, and that's why I love him. He is just. It's this.
He's the perfect opposite of Goku.
It is Dragon Ball in a nutshell. He's not complex. He's not complicated, but it's good because it's just simple. It's just that's it. It's Frieza's an
Yeah, I
evil
didn't-
cunt, and he's fun for it. He's a
I
little
didn't put my
shit.
Dragon Ball villains there because I thought they were very complex.
It's just he's just there's nothing else I can really say. I mean, other than he's sort of he's the antithesis of Goku, but other than that, he's just a shit cunt, and I love him for it. And that image of him is beautiful. That's it. I love that. It's beautiful.
Human
Very
hell.
funny. Does anyone else want to add anything to Frieza?
Not really. I feel like you nailed it. He's just a dick.
Is there anything you want to add to Darth Vader even? That hasn't.
Okay.
He's good in the Lego games.
Yeah. Vader. I mean, I've sort of put him down for the same reasons, in that his journey and all that, and also because he's just Darth Vader. That always been whoop.
He's definitely the most iconic person on this list.
Probably, yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Like even when I was little, like I had like a Darth Vader helmet.
Mm-hmm. And you know, when he has, like, I say this a lot for all of them, but he has such a presence. You know, when he steps out in the first film, when he steps out of the door, it's just like, okay, this guy means business. Means business.
It's also because it's like the hero's journey. It's one of the first
Yeah.
inclinations of that we really see, like this essence of villainy, who is someone literally wearing black against someone like the Jedis who wear white or whatever it was, white, like a weird.
And without
cream.
spoiling the twist, not that you give a fuck.
You never
It's too
know.
late now. It's too late now, but I like how they sort of did that, because at the time that was a twist.
Episode
You know what
3
I
is
mean?
my favorite movie.
Yeah.
Like
And
it's
and
even
that-
my brother's favorite, and my brother's even
Yeah.
worse than me when it comes to this kind of stuff.
Like his journey to become Anakin's journey to become Invader was so well done. Not only because of what he did, but also because when you look at it, you can see the failure of the Jedi Order.
Mm.
How he had no outlet. He had no one to come to about that. The only person who would listen to him and not judge him was Palpatine. And of course, Palpatine did that to get him on the dark side. But you've got to think that if only the Jedi had done the same thing, if only the Jedi had been more open to him,
The
then
only
perhaps it wouldn't have happened.
the only other villain that I would say to put on this list, which I was partially hoping that Alex might have done, is General Grievous.
Haha.
I was considering him.
Yeah. Which
General.
which way are we going now?
Up.
Sosuke Aizen.
We'll go to Eisen. Now, you know, what we're currently reading now, there's obviously a lot more to Eisen, but, you know, I can only talk a
We
little
only
more
have
about
six
the,
volumes. We have 6 volumes left.
yeah. So we're, the reason Eisen, I mean, I always sort of felt like Eisen was going to get up there. Just like the sort of presence he gave off, I'm just like, he's probably going to become a big villain for me.
I remember a
But-
long time ago, like when we did like an antagonist like kind of thing, like I had to push so hard for Aizen.
I know.
Because
But
I
I
was
just-
the only one who knew who Aizen is and what he
I
represents.
didn't know it then,
Yeah.
so I couldn't have. Even now, I probably prefer the ones after him, but it's still, like these three are extremely close, extremely close. In terms of my favorite villain.
The
of
only
all
thing
time.
that's always sad with Aizen, because like everyone always hears Aizen as the villain, so that like so the twist is always spoiled for a lot of people.
Yeah.
The twist wasn't spoiled for me, which I'm a little bit grateful for, but still.
I like Aizen. I think the great thing about Aizen, and it's sort of what I also like about. No, I won't talk about Mother. I'll talk about Aizen now. It's Aizen. I like that he how he's seemingly planning things a step ahead,
One step.
especially with his power, which it seems like powers are normally just a thing that they use to get what they want, but his power is also reflective of what he does, and that's that he's a trickster almost. He always plans. He's always quick to figure things out. It's not just he uses his ability to Kamehameha them out of existence. He uses them in his plan. He uses his foes against themselves, which is something that's so interesting. Like, I don't know if I don't want to spoil too much, but that scene where he makes someone stab someone.
And
When
what that person represents to that other person as well.
I know. When I saw it, I'm like, my boy, my boy. This is like. It's such. It just shows what he does, because he doesn't just fight. He makes his plans go beyond just kill, die, fight. It all builds up from the small seed that he plants to a big thing that ends up working how he wants to. He's one step ahead, and I think that makes him such an interesting villain to see what happens and what he does. And you're always questioning with him: did he plan this all along? Is this part of his plan? What's he doing? I think that makes him it makes him interesting. I like it.
He's also never used his bunker.
True.
Plus, I like that he can openly admit, like, when he has a problem, but he still finds a workaround. Like, when it comes to Yamamoto, he knows he can't beat Yamamoto. So he came out with a workaround with that being an extinguisher. But even the extinguisher kind of took out Yamamoto from the battle a bit. Because he couldn't use his power, because he knew he wasn't able to do shit against that old man. Meruem. You talked a lot about Meruem.
I talked about a lot in Antark, but just to summarize, I just love his character development and how he goes from point A to point B, and how he goes from that point, how the people around him.
You just summarize his arc with point A, point B.
Yeah.
I mean, he's also one of those characters, I feel like Funny Valentine on my list, where we see them as the antagonist, but they're not really the antagonist.
Well, he wasn't.
Yeah. And it's why I always struggle with.
That's why I use the word antagonist, not villain.
But it's even like why I struggle to. It's why Meruem is never first. It is why he is never first. He is very close to it, but he's never first because he is not that antagonistic. He's an antagonist, but he's not that antagonistic. He doesn't really thwart Gon that much. If anything, he's sort of the protagonist of that arc to some extent, because the story is about him. The story is about his growth. It is about Gon a little bit, but so much of the focus is on Meruem. So much of the focus is on him.
It does seem more like just his presence is the antagonist rather than himself.
Yeah.
Just the idea that someone could be this powerful and strong. That's the real threat, and that's why Netero was forced by the Hunter Association to go and try and exterminate him.
But then when he feels like he's the best and he's the strongest, and no one can beat him because he is essentially a god, and then he loses to this fucking little shit, and it's what I find so interesting is the way he goes from a god. I always describe it as this: he goes from an evil god to a benevolent human, and I think that is what describes him. That's what compels me about his character so much. But of course, because he goes to that benevolence, because he goes down that line of benevolence, I find it hard to call him the antagonist, because he is an antagonist, but then he sort of not becomes an antagonist. So that's sort of why he's never number one for me. But he's always second or third. I don't know how I feel about him in relation to Aizen, whether Aizen's third.
Oh, we haven't finished
third,
Bleach as well.
But yeah, true. But yeah, but even at this point, it's still yeah. And then the boy who has
the myth, the legend.
who has stayed on my villains list on the top for
Ever since that scene happened.
I'll never forget, like, just hearing the name Mother and Mother, thinking, oh yeah, whatever, this is another fucking Uchiha. And at that point, I'm like, fuck you, Uchiha, I don't give a fuck. And then this motherfucker comes out. Then you have all this shit, and then you have this guy come out and like, hang on a minute, that's him. And then he comes down and he touches their dicks, and
with just taijutsu as well.
He just touches them, and then he goes from taijutsu, then he starts using a bit of genjutsu, then he starts using ninjutsu,
and then he sends a meteor to the earth, and then another one.
and then only when his back's against the wall, then he whips out the Rinnegan. that entire I've watched that scene way too many times.
All the 5 Kage had to come, and they still couldn't take him down.
Oh, I see the thing.
They couldn't. They got their ass kicked. These are the 5 Kage, and they're like, don't worry, leave him to us. Wow, he sure left you there in pieces. And I mean, even aside from that, the fact that the mere mention of his name, everyone shut themselves. They're like, Madara is back? Oh fuck! We better go to fucking war then.
One of my favorite scenes with Madara is when like the 4 Hokage come to the war, and Madara just jumps down and screams, "Hashirama, I've been waiting for you." And then Hashirama just says something like, "Piss off, I'm busy." He's like, never busy.
His face. He's just so disappointed. However, aside from the sheer badassery of this man,
you can understand his goal.
Yes, that was sort of the point that made me interested in the character. But what made him one of my favorite antagonists of all time is simply because the reasons behind his actions, him and Hashirama, their backstory, him wanting what Hashirama wanted, but him being constantly held back by both the stigma of the Uchiha and also what he feels like the Uchiha needed to accomplish. And then him eventually discovering the infinite Tsukuyomi, and to some extent being right, like, yes, that would actually fix a lot. That would... It's not necessarily it's not a malicious goal. He's not doing it to harm people. He's not doing it because he wants them to be dead. No, he wants it because he thinks that's the way people can be happy. That's the way people can be in peace, and that's the way people won't have to grow up killing each other and hating each other.
He does it by killing a lot of people.
As he had to grow up in the Warring States period.
Mm.
And his friendship with Hashirama and how that builds and how he falls away and the parallels it draws between Naruto and Sasuke, even aside from that whole reincarnation bullshit. But it made him so compelling. Just his goals, the reason he did it. the reason he was doing it, and even at the end, when he was talking with Hashirama, and he sort of understood that maybe Hashirama's way of thinking would bring peace. But though at that point, the series became shit. When he was no longer there, but
he was the puppet, but Aizen was the puppeteer.
And then there's that scene where he just fucking he just stands there and slaps the ever-loving shit out of every tailed beast and knocks them all down.
All of them in front of me. Gotta catch 'em all. That's essentially what he did.
And it was so well set up from the beginning, you know, mentioning Madara's name and then building up to the war and then
having the real Madara.
Thinking you know about Madara and then you don't know about Madara.
Even Kurama hyped up Madara.
Oh. And then this man comes down and touches their dicks. He touches their cocks. He bashes the ever-loving shit out of it. He makes a fire wave so large you need multiple water users just to extinguish it. And even then, they don't push it back. They can only stop it from advancing. And even then, it actually fucks them over because with the steam, they can't fucking... And it's just... brilliant. He's just...
Yeah.
That's why he's gonna be very, very hard to displace. Very hard. I thought he was gonna be displaced by Meruem, but then when I thought about it, I'm like, I just enjoy watching Madara more.
Meruem's such a complex character, but Meruem
doesn't start touching all their dicks. I mean, he does sort of, but not to the same extent. So yeah, that's my thoughts on my boy, my man.
I do love that Aizen is like an incredibly cunning villain, mastermind behind everything. Meruem, an incredibly a character that slowly transitions into human and a dichotomy with Gon, who becomes a monster, and losing with what's her name, the little shit, and then you go Madara, like Madara go.
Literally, because up until that point, I didn't like the Uchiha. I'm like, fuck the Uchiha, I don't give a fuck. Itachi's okay, he's okay. This other one's okay, he's okay. But then Madara comes in like, okay, the Uchiha not so bad. This man's a funny man. And in all that time, we still never see his Mangekyo ability.
Yeah. It's kind of like with Aizen and his Bankai. Yeah.
Which I think is... I wanted to see his Mangekyo ability, but then I think if they did that, they would have broken him even more.
I think that's the end of the stream now.
Yeah, what a good point to end on with Madara. Love hearing Caleb talking about Madara, honestly.
Oh, my boy.
Well, that's the end of the stream. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Oh, straight up, bye.
Bye.